Chapter 1326. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. Everyone from the Yi clan who had entered the treasure house 3 years ago returned one after another. It was especially rumored that Yi Qiong had obtained great benefits from the treasure house. As soon as he returned, he immediately entered a state of closed-door training. Soon, the rumor that Yi Qiong had obtained an ancient word also spread. This matter itself was not a secret, not to mention that so many people had seen it. As for the secret contained in this ancient word, no one knew. Even Yi Qiong did not know before he refined it. However, there was someone who also knew this secret, and that was Yi Shiwen. He had already imprinted the word Do into his mind, even though he had used up all of his spirit crystals just to copy the word Do. This word, Do, was indeed related to the word Wu. The two words reflected each other in Yi Shiwen's mind. Subsequently, the news of Yi Qiong fighting against 3 people by himself and completely suppressing Ting Tong Tian and the other 2 were also exposed. For a time, the morale of the Yi clan soared. The name of Nan Batian was once again discussed enthusiastically. Among these rumors, some of the rumors about Yi Shiwen were also submerged in many others. Because compared to Yi Qiong's dazzling brilliance, Yi Shiwen was nothing at all. When Yi Shiwen returned to the Yi clan, Yi Juhai and the others had already returned to Luoye City. They originally came to participate in the centennial ancestral worship ceremony, so they would not stay here permanently. However, Yi Shiwen still chose to stay at the contact point of the main branch in Luoye City, in the courtyard. This time, Yi Shiwen had a great harvest from the treasure house, even more than Yi Qiong. However, he did not have time to rest. As soon as he returned to the small courtyard, he received a message from the law enforcement hall that Yi Zhentian wanted to see him. Yi Shiwen did not know why, but since this was the case, he would go. Yi Shiwen rushed to the law enforcement city. There was no difference from 3 years ago. However, Yi Shiwen's mentality had undergone a huge change. Back then, Yi Shiwen was just a kid at the 3rd or 4th level of Law Phase realm. Now, he could already kill a half-step celestial realm expert. Do not underestimate half-step sky human stage experts. True sky human stage experts would rarely personally take action. Most of them would spend their time in cultivation retreat. Thus, the ones truly in charge of the various organizations were half-step sky human stage experts. They could be considered as the backbone and pillars of the organization. This time, Yi Shiwen didn't see Yi Shui. He heard that Yi Shui was still in closed-door training. It seemed that all the geniuses were either in closed-door training or preparing to do closed-door training. Everything was in preparation for the upcoming imperial court struggle. It would be a grand meeting of all the geniuses of the human race. If one could make a name for himself there, his name would spread throughout the entire human domain, perhaps even throughout the primordial era. Yi Shiwen quickly entered the law enforcement hall and saw Yi Zhentian. Yi Shiwen greets Hall Master! Yi Shiwen saluted and said, I heard about your performance in the treasure house. Good, very good. Yi Zhentian flipped through a scroll of information on the table. Yi Shiwen glanced at it casually and found that it was all about him. Many of them were about his actions in the treasure house. Yi Shiwen was slightly shocked. He had underestimated the law enforcement hall's intelligence agency. Fortunately, Yi Zhentian did not have any malicious intent. Otherwise, it would be troublesome. You are indeed from our law enforcement hall, Yi Zhentian said. Did you kill Yi Xing? Yi Zhentian asked the most important question. Although Yi Shiwen did not hesitate to kill Yi Xing, there was no doubt that the death of a genius like Yi Xing would definitely attract the attention of many higher-ups. Not to mention, he still had a higher-up father, Yi Qian. Yi Shiwen nodded without hesitation and said, Yes, because he plotted against me at that time, I could only fight back in self-defense. Yi Zhentian saw that Yi Shiwen did not hesitate and his eyes flashed with a bit of admiration. If Yi Shiwen had concealed the truth just now, it would have caused him to be unhappy, and he would have looked down on Yi Shiwen. Although self-defense was necessary, it also depended on the situation. If even he could not believe it, then Yi Shiwen's scheming was too deep. Such a person was a disaster, not a blessing. In that case, I killed him. He actually dared to plot against you. Yi Zhentian was not surprised by Yi Xing's death. He actually plotted against Yi Shiwen. If this was not courting death, then what was? But you should know that although I will not pursue this matter, I am afraid that old bastard Yi Qian will not let this go. He cultivated Yi Xing for hundreds of years and finally pulled him out. Just when he was about to become famous in the Yi family, he was killed by you. I am afraid that he is going to riot now. Yi Shiwen's face showed a bit of a bitter smile, but then he said, Then let him come. Good, well said. How can the people of our law enforcement hall be afraid of that old bastard? Yi Zhentian laughed, and said, However, that old bastard has always been unruly. If he disregards his status and secretly attacks you, then it will be terrible. Thinking of this, Yi Zhentian pondered for a moment and said, Yi Shiwen, are you willing to worship me as your master? Yi Shiwen was shocked. Worshipping Yi Zhentian as a master was a completely different concept from before. In this world, a master for a day was a father for a lifetime. Similarly, once he was accepted as a disciple by Yi Zhentian, then his status in the law enforcement hall would also rise. It was a big deal, just like Yi Shikong becoming the master of the family. When Yi Shiwen was in the true martial school, he became the disciple of the Tibetan Star Sun. Later on, the Tibetan Star Sun helped him many times. For Yi Shiwen, the Tibetan Star Sun did not hesitate to fall out with the other big shots. The meaning of this was naturally different. However, Yi Shiwen did not hesitate for long. He immediately kowtowed and said, Disciple greets master. In this world, there was no such thing as worshipping only one master for life. As the saying goes, those who reach first. Even if the Tibetan Star Sun was here, he would also agree to worship Yi Zhentian as a master. Good, good, good. Yi Zhentian laughed heartily and said. He looked at Yi Shiwen with eyes full of love and affection. Previously, Yi Shiwen was just a subordinate of his law enforcement hall, but now, he was his disciple. Naturally, things were different. In this world, there was a saying that a teacher for a day is a father for a lifetime. Similarly, disciples were almost equivalent to children. Especially in this world, many warriors were too powerful, so they didn't marry in their entire life. Or they didn't marry at all. Disciples were equivalent to their descendants. Now you are my disciple. If anyone dares to touch you, I will help you block those old guys. If they dare to touch you, I will fight my way to their door and turn them upside down, Yi Zhentian said heroically. This heroism also infected Yi Shiwen. With such a master protecting him, many things would be much easier to handle. However, you have to deal with those boys of the younger generation by yourself. These are also part of your training. If you can't even deal with these people, then you will disappoint me too much, Yi Zhentian said. That's natural. Master has already helped me block those older generation experts. If I can't even deal with these remaining people, then I will have no face to see anyone, Yi Shiwen said in a powerful voice. Good, well said. However, your cultivation time is still too short. You may be considered top-notch when compared to Yi Shui and the others. However, you are still lacking when compared to those 5 boys of the 5 tyrants. Yi Zhentian was the law enforcement hall's hallmaster. His vision was naturally very high. Ordinary people simply couldn't enter his eyes. Only the top existences like the 5 tyrants could make him pay attention to them. He was not muddle-headed. Yi Shiwen's cultivation time was still too short. In the future, he might soar to the sky. Perhaps, he might even be able to defeat the God's child. However, at present, he was still a young eagle and needed to be protected. In the future, he would soar to the sky. Yi Shiwen was not surprised because his goal was also to reach the level of the 5 tyrants. Since you are already my disciple, then I will personally guide you in your cultivation from now on, Yi Zhentian said. I have also seen your information. Since you have returned to the Yi family, your cultivation has advanced by leaps and bounds. This is admittedly very powerful, but at the same time, it has left behind many hidden dangers. Yi Shiwen was about to say that it was impossible, but he saw Yi Zhentian say, I know what you want to say. Your foundation is very solid. It is indeed the best I have seen in my life. However, you must understand that the path of martial arts cultivation is absolutely not limited to the practice of martial arts. Let me ask you, what is the essence of martial arts? The essence of martial arts is to go against the heaven's will and change one's fate, Yishuan said. Yishuan blurted out almost without any hesitation. For many people, they absolutely wouldn't say such words. However, Yishuan was different. He had been accompanied by EMOs since a long time ago. Therefore, his vision was far higher than that of an ordinary warrior. From the very beginning, he stood at a very high starting point to look at martial arts cultivation, and the effect was naturally extraordinary. That's right, the essence of martial arts is not to be brave and ruthless. That's right, the essence of martial arts is not to be brave and ruthless. Nor is it some kind of fighting technique created by the ancient ancestors for the sake of survival. In essence, it is to defy the heaven and change one's fate. Our human race is famous for its short lifespan. If we don't practice, then even if we live in a place full of lingqi, we can only live for a short 100 years. In the end, people are afraid of death, and in order to live longer, they have created all kinds of cultivation methods. Defying the heaven is the essence of cultivation. As for the various martial techniques and moves, they are just derived from this process. Although it can't be said that they are completely irrelevant, but compared to the true essence, they are still insignificant. The true essence is to comprehend the heaven's way, so that one day, one can defy the heaven and change one's fate, change everything, and thus achieve the goal of eternal life. Yizhentian explained to Yishuan. Chapter 13:27. Yishuan nodded. Only those who were not strong enough thought that martial arts cultivation was for the sake of fighting fiercely. In fact, everything was just for the sake of immortality. This was a fascinating term. All the masters and almighties had practiced their entire lives just to touch the edge of this word. This was the root of martial arts cultivation. Since you understand this point, then you should understand that comprehending the heavenly way is the core of all cultivation, especially at your level. You should also be able to feel the existence of the heavenly way. For us, the heavenly way is like a huge cage, enveloping us in it. We practice our entire lives in order to not be bound by this cage, Yizhentian said. Yishuan nodded. He also had a deep understanding of this. For ordinary people, the heavenly way was something that couldn't be seen or touched. However, the higher the level of cultivation, the more they could feel the existence of the heavenly way. This was not an illusory existence, but a real existence. Just like the programs in the computer of his previous life, the entire heavenly way was like a supercomputer composed of countless programs. No matter how a warrior practiced, it must be within the scope of this supercomputer, including the practice itself. Although it was known to defy the heaven and change one's fate, but in fact, if the rules of the heavenly way did not allow it, it was simply impossible for a warrior to practice. This heavenly way's program stipulated everything in the world, including the lifespan of a human. As long as one reached a certain level, they would naturally die of old age. There was a mysterious force controlling all of this. And the so-called immortality was like when one understood these operating rules, and wrote another set of program code, and modified the entire program, so that a person could avoid the fate of being erased after the end of his lifespan. In other words, from a small code in the entire program, a gorgeous transformation into a programmer who could change the code, and a programmer who could manipulate the program. This was a huge gap that needed to be crossed. Just from looking at the paper, one could see how difficult it was in the end. It was just like how people on Earth, how could they imagine that one day, a code would become a programmer? And to comprehend the heavenly way, the most important thing is to be knowledgeable and be able to comprehend by analogy. The more knowledgeable you are, the easier it will be for you to practice. Do you understand? Yizhentian looked at Yishuan and said. Yishuan nodded. Just like if one wanted to really modify the program to achieve the goal of defying the heaven and changing one's fate, one must at least truly understand how this program works in order to find the loopholes and patch it to make oneself immortal. And now you are at the stage where you lack the accumulation of such knowledge. Your progress is too fast. Although I don't know how your previous cultivation was, from the time you returned to the E-clan, you have progressed to this level in less than 10 years. I can more or less see that your bone age is at most 200 years old. You can be considered very young, Yixintian said. The current you doesn't need to continue to advance bravely. If it's just the accumulation of energy, this is too easy for our E-clan. You don't have to worry about this. However, you currently lack the accumulation of this knowledge. You might not feel it now, but when you cultivate to the late stage of the half-step heaven realm, you might be stuck at this step for hundreds of years, or even hundreds of years. The heaven realm represents a whole new realm, representing the unity of heaven and man. Your current situation is far from enough. Like Yi Chanqian, Yi Shui, and the others, they have been receiving this knowledge for many years in order to increase their realm in order to match their own cultivation. This complements each other, which is why their cultivation is progressing at lightning speed. With the Yi clan's financial and material resources, as long as their comprehension increases, the increase of strength is just a matter of piling up resources. This is the simplest thing to do, Yixintian said. What you need now isn't to continue advancing bravely. If it's just the accumulation of energy, it would be too easy for our Yi clan. Our Yi clan has been established in the ancient Barrens continent for countless years. What we lack the least is this kind of resources, especially for geniuses like you. Our Yi clan is the target of nurturing with all our resources. Only then did Yi Shiwen come to a realization. No wonder those geniuses' cultivation was faster than the other. The so-called accumulation wasn't the accumulation of strength, and it was different from Yi Shiwen's method of obtaining spirit crystals. The Yi clan would provide all of these for them. Their true accumulation was all kinds of knowledge and comprehension. As long as their comprehension increased, their personal realms would increase, and their strength could be quickly accumulated. All of these were nothing. What those geniuses didn't lack was comprehension ability. Each of them had outstanding aptitudes, just like monstrous geniuses. Otherwise, they wouldn't be called heavenly prodigies. Of course, not everyone could enjoy this. Usually, in a generation, there were less than 10 people who could enjoy it. Just like Yi Shiwen, Yi Shui, and Yi Feng's generation, only a few people could enjoy it. Most people still needed to use all kinds of hard work to exchange for cultivation resources. This was very unfair. However, the world itself was unfair. It had been like this since people were born. However, these geniuses also needed to shoulder more responsibilities. Once something happened, they would need to charge and break through the enemy lines at the front line. This was also fair to a certain extent. However, the responsibilities they had to bear were different. So, it seems that the hidden dangers of your cultivation are not big. However, the hidden dangers are actually very big. The higher your cultivation level is, the bigger the hidden dangers will be. Your knowledge is too lacking. Other people have learned knowledge for hundreds of years, but you have to learn from the beginning. There are too many things you need to learn. So, in the next few years, I want you to honestly accept this knowledge. As for the promotion of cultivation, you don't have to worry about it. As long as you have enough resources, you can even break into the celestial being realm in a short time. As long as your mental cultivation can keep up with the speed of the growth of your strength, Yixintian said. Yi Shiwen thought that this was indeed the case. He couldn't help but feel some lingering fear in his heart. If Yixintian hadn't reminded him, and continued to practice like this, then the sequelae would have been much bigger. It was true that he had the enlightening mind ancient tree and the mysterious space. Even if he continued to practice like this, he wouldn't have to be afraid of chi deviation. However, sooner or later, he would have to walk into a dead end. At that time, he would have to learn from the beginning again. I will sincerely follow Master's instructions, Yi Shiwen said. Well, there are still a few years before the Imperial Court struggle. You should know about this, Yixintian said. Yes. Yi Shiwen nodded. He also wanted to amaze the world in the Imperial Court struggle. However, our law enforcement hall is somewhat slow in this regard. So, we are at a disadvantage. None of the 5 tyrants are from our law enforcement hall. Although there are a few outstanding geniuses, but they are weaker than the 5 tyrants. But you are the one who is favored by the higher-ups of our law enforcement hall. You have the potential to contend against the 5 tyrants in the future, Yi Zhentian said. In your generation, although Yi Shui and the others are not bad, but in the future, it will be very difficult for them to contend against the 5 tyrants. Only you and Yi Su Kong have enough potential. In the future you may become one of the 2 tyrants of the younger generation. The Imperial Court struggle is an excellent opportunity to test your potential. In this Imperial Court struggle, I am afraid that it will be very difficult for you to contend against the 5 tyrants. But there is still a long way to go. Don't worry, I will let you enter a secret territory of our law enforcement hall to practice. Later, I will also frequently come here to give you pointers in your practice. You will have a good foundation, and when that time comes, you will directly rush into the celestial realm. Your future will be truly limitless, Yi Zhentian said in a sincere and heartfelt manner. Yi Zhentian did things in a hurry and did not hesitate at all. When he said that he would let Yi Shiwen go to the secret territory, he immediately let Yi Shiwen go. He did not delay even for a second. Soon an old man came in from outside. This old man had 1 foot in the grave, and it seemed as if a gust of wind could blow him away. At the most critical moment, Yi Shiwen felt a strong death chi from his body. The angel's 5 decrepitude had already descended on his body, and his whole body was aging. Not everyone who looked like an old man was really old. For the truly tyrannical warriors, their appearance could be changed at will. No one really cared about the changes in their appearance. After all, it was just a stinky skin bag, and if one cared about it, it would be a waste of time. This kind of feeling of the angel's 5 decrepitude, Yi Shiwen had also felt from the old head of Yi Yuan school. It was a kind of real despair and near-death situation. At that time, this kind of state had given Yi Shiwen a great shock. It forced him to cultivate hard every minute and every second, so that he would not become like this one day in the future. But even so, Yi Shiwen still felt a trace of the Celestial Realm Master's aura from his body. This kind of complete integration with heaven and earth, the realm of celestial being as one, was extremely profound. If one closed his eyes and used his divine sense to feel, this old man's body was simply like a raging storm. This is? Yi Shiwen asked. You can call him Old Ji. This senior is an extremely senior in my law enforcement hall. In the future, he will be responsible for guiding your cultivation for the next few years. You must respect him, just like how you respect me, do you understand? Yi Zhentian said. Yi Shiwen was slightly shocked in his heart. Letting an extremely strong master and celestial being responsible for guiding his cultivation, Yi Clan really had an incomparably deep foundation. Although this old man was already in the angel's 5 decrepitude, and his strength might be greatly reduced compared to his peak, but he estimated that he had lived for thousands of years. It could definitely be said that he was a living fossil, an antique type of person. Their martial arts knowledge was extremely profound. Such a person, if placed in any force, would be an elder-like existence. These people could use their own rich experience to help the younger generation avoid many detours. Such a person, in the Yi clan, was absolutely a person of virtue and prestige. Now, actually personally came out to guide his cultivation. In addition to the Yi clan's deep foundation, it was enough to see that this time, the law enforcement hall's higher-ups were also extremely optimistic about him, and were putting in a lot of effort to cultivate him. Chapter 1328. Such an old man, with his rich experience and knowledge, was a treasure trove that could never be dug out. As the saying goes, an old man who doesn't die is called a demon. Although this saying was somewhat unpleasant to hear, but it explains some truth. Such a person was a treasure for the Yi family. Strength was not the key. In the Yi family, tyrannical masters could be found everywhere, but not everyone could have this kind of experience. Old Ji! Yi Shiwen quickly saluted respectfully. Whether it was strength, qualifications, experience, or age, the other party was worthy of Yi Shiwen's salute. Although Yi Shiwen had never heard of this person's name, such a person was a generation of people who dominated the world countless years ago. Now, how many people would still remember him? As the saying goes, the new generation replaces the old. "Hall Master is too polite," Old Yi just said lightly. "This old man is just a candle in the wind and candle in the wind. It is nothing. I am just a person waiting to die. Now, it is already an honor to be able to contribute to the Yi family." Old Yi was calm. He had already seen through life and death. Even if the topic of death was mentioned, ordinary people would change their expressions, but he was still calm. This was enough to show that his inner strength was far beyond ordinary people's imagination. "Old Yi, you're too polite. Didn't you look after me too?" It was rare for Yi Zhentian to have such a gentle side to him. Usually, his image was that of a cold-blooded person. It could be seen that Old Ye's position in Yi Zhentian's heart was indeed extraordinary. Yi Shiwen also did not dare to neglect. "Yi Shiwen, in the future, Old Yi will be responsible for your cultivation. If you have any questions, you can ask him. Old Yi was one of the few masters of our Yi family." Yi Zhentian looked at Yi Shiwen and said, "Understood," Yi Shiwen replied. "Well, next, Old Yi will bring you into the secret territory. For the next period of time, you will have to cultivate in it," Yi Zhentian said. Soon Yi Shiwen bid farewell to Yi Zhentian and followed Old Yi to the secret territory to cultivate. "You are only 200 years old, right?" Old Yi asked. The two stepped on the light, and went all the way to the depths of the Yi family. Yi Shiwen did not ask where they were going. He just silently remembered the way and followed behind Old Yi. "Yes," Yi Shiwen nodded and said. "To be able to cultivate to such a level at the age of 200, if it were an outsider, I'm afraid they would think that you are a true genius. It seems that you can be mentioned in the same breath as the Son of God." "Old man," Yi said calmly, as if there was a deeper meaning in his words. Yi Shiwen was startled for a moment. He didn't know why Old Yi had said so. "But you have many internal injuries on your body. Although your cultivation method is very profound, it has actually damaged your foundation. Although this is normal for a warrior who has fought for his entire life, but you have so many internal injuries at your age. I'm afraid that you have experienced many life and death battles, and how many times have you escaped from death to be like this?" Old man Ye's words revealed the mystery. This suddenly made Yi Shiwen incomparably shocked. He didn't expect that Old Yi would see through his actual situation at a glance. In the past, everyone would often marvel at his genius after knowing his age and realm. However, only Old Yi could see through it at a glance. It was unknown how many life and death battles he had experienced. This was the fundamental reason why he had been able to make breakthroughs. Only in the midst of life and death was the best time to comprehend. However, many people weren't as lucky as Yi Shiwen. Most of the time, they would die tragically on the spot before they could comprehend. Just based on this, it was enough to make Yi Shiwen look at Old Yi in a new light. Old Yi was worthy of being one of the top experts of the Yi family. His words were extraordinary. It is precisely because of this that I agreed with the Hall Master to train you with all his strength. Having a high innate talent doesn't mean anything. There are countless experts in the Yi family, and talented people are endless. However, those who can reach the peak in the end may not necessarily be the outstanding ones when they were young. A lifetime is still very long. Perseverance and perseverance are the only way to reach the peak. Old Yi said, and you have such perseverance and perseverance. Most importantly, you have luck. Luck! Perhaps you don't accept it. In your opinion, you have earned everything by relying on your own hands. You have started from scratch with your bare hands. However, from these internal injuries on your body, it can be seen that you have experienced many life and death battles. If you had made one mistake, you might have died tragically on the spot. Can you still say that you have bad luck? Old Yi squinted his eyes and smiled. It seemed as if he was looking at a naughty and rebellious child. Yi Shiwen remained silent. In the beginning, he might have been very unwilling to accept the idea of luck. Although he didn't deny the existence of luck, he didn't believe in luck. He only believed in his own hands. Man can conquer nature. However, after listening to old Ye's words, he carefully thought about it. If his luck was really bad, then he might have died a long time ago. Perhaps he wasn't like the rumor that he could casually go out and stumble and pick up a heavenly level divine tool. Or he could casually sit on the ground and pick up a martial arts secret manual. However, he had experienced so many battles, and every time he narrowly won, or escaped with his life. Wasn't that enough to prove that his luck was good enough? Are you very depressed? In fact, you don't have to be like this. Haven't you heard of the saying? Luck is also a part of strength. Although this saying is very vague, it is indeed true. If your luck is bad and you are a person plagued with bad luck, then even if you are talented, we will never consider cultivating you. Because you may die a violent death in the next second. Old Yi said indifferently. Thank you for your teachings. After listening to these words, Yi Shiwen suddenly had a feeling of enlightenment. It was as if he had suddenly been enlightened. His state of mind suddenly became clear. He was too obsessed with this point. Whether it was luck or strength, it was all a part of him. If he was too obsessed with denying the existence of luck, then wasn't he also denying himself? It was like Yi Shikong didn't believe in anything. He only believed in himself. However, Yi Shiwen was different. All kinds of martial arts, all kinds of divine tools were the foundation of his victory. Everything was fake. Only his heart was the only one. As long as he understood in his heart, then using divine tools was nothing. Now, the saying of luck was the same. He was too biased before. This made Yi Shiwen faintly excited. Just a few words of advice had benefited him a lot. This old Ye's realm was really very high. If he followed him to cultivate, he should be able to gain a lot. This was completely different from his way of getting along with Yemo. Yemo also knew a lot. Moreover, he was an old monster who had lived for God knows how many years. However, his main focus was still the devil race's power technique. In the case that Yi Shiwen didn't want to become the successor of the Devil King, it was impossible to use the whole set of methods to cultivate the successor of the Devil King on Yi Shiwen. A lot of advice could only be given when they encountered each other. However, old Ye's advice was more of a systematic imparting of all kinds of knowledge to Yi Shiwen. The two were completely different. However, it didn't mean that Yemo was not important. On the contrary, he was very important. He gave Yi Shiwen a different starting point. You can understand this. Very good. Old Yi looked at Yi Shiwen with appreciation. He was very satisfied to see that Yi Shiwen didn't persist in this matter. One must know that each of these geniuses was an extremely talented existence. However, at the same time, they were also unruly. Each of them had a stubborn temper that couldn't be pulled back. It was very difficult to give them advice. In other words, in fact, every top expert was such an unruly existence. Yi Shiwen followed Old Yi all the way to the depths of the Yi family. This is the secret territory of our Yi family. It is very old. It has existed for many years. Even I don't know how many years it has been. Countless geniuses of our Yi family have been cultivated in this place. This place also includes the patriarch. Old Yi said. Yi Shiwen heard this and was secretly speechless. Even the patriarch of the Yi family was cultivated in this place. It has been so long that I don't even know its name. We call it Secret Territory Number 1. Old Yi said. Secret Territory Number 1. Yi Shiwen read this name and remembered it in his heart. In the Secret Territory Number 1, there are not only experts of our law enforcement hall. There are also experts of many other organizations. In fact, there are not only experts of our Yi family. There are also many experts of our Yi family who don't share the same surname. Old Yi said. Experts of other surnames. Yi Shiwen remembered that the Yi family not only had a huge number of clansmen, but also many experts of other surnames who had the Yi family's bloodline. For example, if the father was a member of the Yi family, then this person's surname would be Yi. Naturally, he would be an authentic expert of the Yi family. However, if the mother was a member of the Yi family, then his father was a member of another family. In this case, although his surname wasn't Yi, but for the Yi family, these people were actually people of the Yi family's bloodline. They were also treated as the Yi family's disciples. In addition, some children who married into the same powerful forces would be loyal to their father's side. Some children who married into weaker forces would be loyal to the Yi family. In addition, the Yi family was also sincerely recruiting these talents. There were various preferential policies that were no worse than the Yi family's disciples. In fact, they could even change their surname to Yi. In any case, half of their bodies contained the Yi family's blood. It was just that their parents were different. So, there was no difference. In addition to these experts of other surnames, there were also many children of clans and forces that had attached themselves to the Yi family for many years. Their clans had attached themselves to the Yi family since a long time ago. They had been tied together with the Yi family for a long time. It was impossible to separate them from each other. If these children were outstanding, they could also receive the Yi family's training. They would be continuously recruited into the Yi family. Then, the Yi family's daughters would marry them and give birth to even more outstanding next generation. In this way, generation after generation, it ensured that the Yi family had a continuous stream of experts. There were countless geniuses in the new generation. Chapter 1329. Even in times of trouble, these foreign experts were even more loyal and devoted than the Yi family's disciples. Of course, there were always a few scum and scum everywhere, but in comparison, the Yi family's policy was absolutely correct. Therefore, they recruited countless experts to serve the Yi family, giving them the opportunity to be on equal footing with the Yi family's experts. Even those families and forces attached to the Yi family, although they were not from the Yi family, the result of intermarriage with the Yi family for many years was that they more or less had the blood of the Yi family in their bodies. The Yi family, together with these peripheral forces, formed a very huge interest chain and group. Although Yishiwen had not been here for long, he still knew about it. Those who can enter the number 1 secret realm are all geniuses. For example, the current 5 tyrants of the younger generation occupy the 5 best secret realms in the number 1 secret realm all year round, said Olji. Except for them, everyone's secret realm is not fixed, because the secret realm you are in may be snatched away at any time. This is allowed in the number 1 secret realm. In the number 1 secret realm, strength is the strongest, said Olji, looking at Yishiwen. Yishiwen was a little stunned. Yishiwen was somewhat stunned. This was much crueler than he had imagined. It turned out that the secret territory was not fixed. One had to compete for whatever kind of secret territory one desired. The stronger one's strength was, the better the secret territory one would be able to seize. This way, one's cultivation would also be faster. At the same time, there would certainly be many people coveting your secret territory, which would force you to cultivate desperately to avoid being overtaken by others. If you were overtaken by others, then your secret territory would belong to someone else. At that time, even if you had thousands of reasons, it would be useless. It is because you don't have enough strength. As Olji said, it is a world where strength is respected. Olji won't take action at that time, right? Said Yishiwen, looking at Olji. No, I won't take action. Everything depends on you. I am only responsible for guiding your cultivation, said Olji. Yishiwen nodded. Sure enough, in the Yi family, competition is everywhere. It is more intense than what he originally thought. It was the same even in the arcane realm. This was completely different from when he was in the law enforcement heavenly prison. Although the law enforcement heavenly prison was dangerous everywhere, it was a completely different feeling from competition. But don't worry, you have a year's time. You are considered a newcomer, so within this year, they won't be able to find trouble with you. However, after a year, a large number of people will come to find trouble with you. Olji smiled faintly. Because you're in the best spot in the human character secret realm. Human secret territory? Yishiwen asked. Yes, in the number 1 secret realm, although there are many secret realms, in general, they are divided into 3 types, heaven, earth, and human. Among them, the human character secret realm is occupied by many masters below the celestial realm. In the earth character secret realm, it is the realm occupied by the real celestial realm masters. And in the heaven character secret realm, it is the secret realm occupied by the extremely strong among the celestial realm masters. Currently, among the younger generation of the Yi family, only the 5 hegemons occupy the last 5 secret realms in the heaven character secret realm. As for the others, no matter how tyrannical they are, they can only move freely in the earth character secret realm, said Old Yi. With just a few words, Old Yi completely outlined the intense competition in the number 1 secret realm. From high to low, according to the distribution of strength, even the 5 hegemons, who dominated the younger generation, could only be ranked at the bottom in the heaven character secret realm. One could imagine how many masters there were in the heaven character secret realm. But even so, the secret realms occupied by the 5 hegemons were second to none among the masters of the Yi family. And what was even worse was his location. In the human character secret realm, there were top masters below the celestial realm. He, a kid at the 8th level of the transcendence realm, could actually occupy the best spot. One could imagine how many people were indignant. If this was just a secret realm distributed by the higher-ups, it would be fine. But this was a secret realm that could be snatched. This gave many ambitious people an excellent opportunity. As long as they defeated Yishiwen, they could snatch the secret realm. In all fairness, if it were Yishiwen, he would not let go of such a good opportunity, let alone these people. Now, he finally understood what Old Man Yi meant when he said that a large number of people would come to find trouble with him. Yi Zhentian was basically putting him on a barbecue rack, letting countless people stare at the arcane realm under his butt. At any time, it could be overturned by someone. At that time, he might be homeless, and it was possible that he would lose all his face. What? Are you afraid? Old Yi said lightly. No, even so, I will go all out. Those who want to snatch my secret realm, let them come, Yishiwen said sonorously. There was a hint of a smile in Old Yi's eyes, and there was also a bit of admiration. Such a young man was rare. He was neither servile nor overbearing, but most importantly, he was not arrogant either. Maintaining a calm state of mind was the most important. All right, then come with me. You still have a lot of things to do in this 1 year's time. There are too many hidden dangers in your body. For your age, it's already shocking enough. If you continue to accumulate like this, you may not live past 1,000 years old. Old Yi said. All right, then come with me. You still have a lot of things to do in this 1 year. Yishiwen nodded. He also understood that Old Yi was right. If he continued to use the Phoenix regeneration technique and consumed his lifespan to repair the injuries on his body, he might not live more than 1,000 years and would die tragically. Although he still had thousands of years of lifespan, he really could not afford to waste it like a prodigal. It was not that he did not know in the past, but he had no choice. Those treasures that could restore lifespan, each of them was sky high. Although his wealth was extremely fast, it was also extremely fast to use it. It was difficult to really accumulate. Therefore, he had the idea of going to the Devil Domain to inherit the wealth of the Devil King. Only in this way, he could eliminate the hidden dangers in his body in one fell swoop. If you are in a small force, you can only fend for yourself. They simply cannot have enough treasures to repair the hidden injuries in your body. However, in our Yi family, we have enough such resources. Of course, these are only conventional resources. If it involves some precious treasures, you still have to use points to exchange for them. As long as you complete the corresponding tasks, these things are not difficult to obtain, Old Yi said. Generally, people work hard to complete tasks to earn points in order to exchange for cultivation resources, but you are not the same, Old Man Yi said. Most people work hard to complete missions to earn points in exchange for cultivation resources, but you guys are different. The Yi family can actually provide the resources you need for free, but first, it will consume too much, and second, it will be a tempering for you guys. In martial arts cultivation, you can't just work behind closed doors. You have to go out and experience everything in the outside world. As the saying goes, reading 10,000 books is not as good as walking 10,000 miles, and in your case, after walking 10,000 miles, you have to read 10,000 books. Yi Shiwen understood in his heart. It turned out to be like this. The Yi family had existed for so many years, and each of its rules and regulations had gone through thousands of tests. It was the most suitable system. Perhaps it was not suitable for taking care of the weak, but it was absolutely suitable for the strong to stand out from among them. I also heard from the Hall Master that you are from an unorthodox background. You have not received formal education. In the next period of time, I will make up for this part of you. Old Yi said. Yi Shiwen nodded again and again, and his face revealed a somewhat happy expression. There were many people in the clan who wanted to listen to Old Yi's teachings, but they did not have the opportunity. Now, he had such an opportunity. If not for Yi Zhentian's face, how could he have had such an opportunity? At least as far as he knew, it was impossible for Yi Shui to have such a heaven-tier expert giving pointers at her side all the time. Every single one of these heaven-tier experts' time was precious, and how many people had the time to waste on giving pointers to the younger generation? Speaking of which, it was precisely because Old Yi did not have much time left. He knew that it was impossible for him to have a breakthrough before his death, and he could not reach that illusory Tao of eternal life. Therefore, he had come out of the mountain to give Yi Shiwen pointers. Also, there are many treasures in the clan that specialize in treating this kind of internal injury. They can prolong one's lifespan. These things are not within the scope of providing you for free. You must personally exchange for them with your points. With the current amount of clan points that you have, you can exchange for one or two things. But your internal injury is absolutely not something that can be cured with one or two things, Old Yi said. Yi Shiwen secretly noted these things in his heart. These things would come in handy one day in the future. As the two of them talked, Old Yi explained some things about Secret Realm No. 1 to him. The two of them had already arrived at Secret Realm No. 1. Although this was called Secret Realm No. 1, in fact, according to Old Yi, this Secret Realm No. 1 was actually formed by the combination of countless secret realms. It was the largest and most fundamental secret realm of the Yi clan. It was divided into three parts: heaven, earth, and human. And the secret realm that Yi Shiwen obtained was ranked first among the human secret realms. It was the human secret realm No. 1 among the human secret realms. Of course, this was the official name. In fact, after a secret realm had a master, it would be given a variety of names according to their preferences. But these were not important. Yi Shiwen understood that the superior environment of this secret realm was only one of the factors. The fierce competition was the root cause of rapid progress in Secret Realm No. 1. Old Yi and Yi Shiwen arrived in front of a huge space gate. After Old Yi had verified the entry token, the space gate slowly opened under the command of the guarding elder. Yi Shiwen took a deep breath. In the future, this place would become his permanent residence for a long time. Even the masters at the level of the 5 hegemons would occupy a secret realm in Secret Realm No. 1 all year round. The two of them stepped on the light and entered Secret Realm No. 1. Chapter 1330. Yi Shiwen and Old Yi stepped into the No. 1 secret territory. This No. 1 secret territory was like an extremely vast cosmic space. In this cosmic space, planets densely covered the entire cosmic space. They were traveling in a certain trajectory. These planets were lush and lush. Each of them was not inferior to the Earth that Yi Shiwen had seen in his previous life. All kinds of life were thriving on these planets. Above these planets, there were floating continents. Each continent had a radius of 100,000 miles. These were the secret territories where the disciples of the Yi clan cultivated. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but gasp in amazement. He didn't know what method had been used, but the spirit energies of these planets were continuously being absorbed into these secret realms. Using the spirit energy of a planet to support a secret territory for the cultivation of a genius. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but gasp in amazement at such a large scale. The foundation of the Yi clan was 100 times or even 1,000 times deeper than he had imagined. If he was in the outside world, he would never be able to truly imagine such a scene. In the faraway depths, there were even more massive desolate planets supporting even more massive planets. It's so spectacular! Yishuan couldn't help but exclaim. Being able to cultivate here for a day is equivalent to dozens of days in the outside world. Exactly. This is also one of the foundations of my Yi clan. All the geniuses of the Yi clan have cultivated here, said Olji. It's just that most people don't have such good luck like you. Everyone has to pay a huge price to cultivate here. The wealth you need to pay every day is astronomical. The law enforcement hall has already paid for your portion. So, you don't have to worry about being driven out. Yishuan nodded. Yes, one gave and one took. This in itself was a matter that needed to be balanced. Even a huge force like the Yi clan would quickly go bankrupt if it only constantly gave to disciples. Only by constantly taking from some disciples and giving to some disciples could a balance be maintained. Continuous accumulation was the key to the long-term development of a force. Only taking or only giving would break such a balance. At the same time, it could also be seen that this time, the law enforcement hall had paid a huge price to cultivate him. Not only did they ask Olji to personally guide his cultivation, they even booked the #1 secret territory for him. Of course, if you can rely on your strength to break into the Earth's secret territory, not only will the law enforcement hall not blame you, but they will also continue to pay for your cultivation in the secret territory. So, you should also understand that except for those who cultivate here for a short period of time and don't care about the quality of the secret territory, most of the people who reside here are supported by forces. They are all major forces, branch families, branches of the Yi clan, or even outstanding people who are cultivated by our Yi clan. This secret territory competition is also tacitly approved by the higher-ups, said Olji. Yishuan nodded. Since this place was not open to the public for free, then the resources needed to stay here were unimaginable. At least, Yishuan himself could not afford it. Of course, if you are able to enter the Heaven's secret realm one day, then you will have to personally pay for all the resources you need. However, if that day really comes, with your ability, you should be able to be self-sufficient. Just like the 5 hegemons right now, they are all paying for their own expenses. It's almost as if they have established their own sect now. Their future is limitless. When Olji said this, he also had a rare feeling. Looking at the 5 hegemons, it was like looking at himself in the past. Yishuan was not disappointed. For him, the Earth's secret territory was already the world of Heaven realm experts, not to mention the Heaven's secret territory. In addition to the new generation of top experts like the 5 hegemons, there were some old antiques, living fossils, and the like, experts who spent years in closed-door training to comprehend the way of immortality. If he really reached that point, Yishuan would have long been extraordinary. Just the spirit crystals that automatically condensed every day were countless. Therefore, the thing that a big family like the Yi clan lacked the least was spirit crystals. Yishuan and Olji passed through one secret territory after another in the human secret territory. Some of these secret territories were empty, especially the more outer the secret territories, the more empty they were. But similarly, the deeper they went, the fewer empty secret territories there were. Inside these secret territories, there were many tyrannical auras occupying the entire secret territory, and anyone who tried to approach would be warned. And the planets under these secret territories were also full of vitality. There were countless lives, and there was even no lack of tyrannical beasts half a step into Heaven realm. The arrival of the two quickly attracted the attention of many experts. Originally, they only attracted some attention because they were passing by, but soon, these experts discovered that Yishuan's goal was actually to go to the human secret territory #1. Immediately, many people were surprised. Why is he going to the human secret territory #1? Isn't that place empty? This is interesting. I have never seen this person before. Is he a newcomer who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth? TSK, this human secret territory #1, in terms of quality, is already close to the Earth's secret territory, so the cost is also the most expensive. Even if an ordinary person occupies it, They can't afford this cost. I seem to have heard that the Law Enforcement Hall's Human Secret Territory No. 1 has been reserved. Could it be this kid? This is interesting. It is not surprising that the Law Enforcement Hall took action and took over the Human Secret Territory No. 1. With their wealth, they can definitely do it. But this kid is only at the 8th level of the law manifestation realm. Can he afford to take over the Human Secret Territory No. 1? TSK, when it is robbed, he will cry miserably. The wealth that has been paid in advance can't be recovered. It will be as miserable as it can be. Many people could see that Yishiwen was only at the 8th level of the law manifestation realm. This cultivation was already considered elite among the young people in the outside world, but here, it was too ordinary and could even be ranked at the bottom. Especially these masters, the owners of the top 100 secret territories, were almost all top masters at the peak of half-step celestial realm late. Yishiwen looked ordinary in these people's eyes. As for old Yi, who was standing beside Yishiwen, they didn't pay any attention to him. He was just an old man who had one foot in the grave. He would die of old age at any time. So, they didn't find anything unusual about him. Everyone could see that the owner of the Human Secret Territory No. 1 was this kid who was only at the 8th level of the law manifestation realm. Probably the Law Enforcement Hall thinks that they are in charge of the Yi family's laws, so no one dares to touch their members. What a joke. What kind of place is this? The reputation of the Law Enforcement Hall is less than dog sh*t here. Some people sneered and said, these people were all proud and unruly geniuses. Coupled with the fact that they had powerful backers, the Law Enforcement Hall's name might be a great deterrent to others. It was the scariest organization in the world, but it was just an ordinary name for these people. It did not have much deterrent power. See, if you want to survive here and protect the Heaven No. 1 secret territory, it is useless to rely on the name of the Law Enforcement Hall. Even your title as the direct disciple of the Hall Master is useless. Many of these people are also of noble birth. If you want to suppress them, you can only rely on tyrannical strength. Elder Yi said faintly. Yi Shiwen also heard the discussion of these people. These people talked unscrupulously and did not hide anything at all. Perhaps they did not take him seriously at all, so they said it casually. His expression was a little ugly. It seemed that his days in the Human No. 1 secret realm would be more difficult than he had imagined. He, who had occupied the Human No. 1 secret realm, was definitely the center of attention in the entire Human secret realm. This time, he had been tricked and roasted on the fire. However, these emotions only lasted for a moment. Soon, these negative emotions were swept away by him. Chapter 1331. At a glance, there were a large number of servants going in and out of the entire Human Dimension No. 1 secret realm, busy moving all kinds of things into the Human Dimension No. 1 secret realm. All kinds of expensive decorations, as well as all kinds of carriages, etc., as if there was a big move. Is this also arranged in advance? Yishiwen asked old Yi. No, we arranged for you to come in here to practice, not to enjoy. Old Yi shook his head and said. That is... Yishiwen instantly thought of a possibility. In Taiping. Just as he was still guessing, a few streams of light flew up in an instant and rushed in front of Yishiwen and old Yi. The three young masters were all at the peak of the half-step celestial realm middle stage, but looking at their clothes, they were not masters of the Yi clan. Who are you people? How dare you break into Taiping realm? The leading master at the peak of the half-step celestial realm middle stage shouted coldly. Taiping realm. In Taiping. Yi Shiwen almost immediately understood who these people were. He suddenly laughed, thinking it was very funny. This Human Dimension No. 1 secret realm was occupied by him, but this Yin Taiping actually occupied this Human Dimension No. 1 secret realm openly. Was this a slap in the face? Sure enough, at this time, many eyes around swept down. These eyes had a bit of playfulness, as if they wanted to see a conflict between the two sides. Although they were far away, for these powerful masters, their eyes were like torches, and it was not difficult for them to see through 1,000 miles. Typing realm? When did this place become typing realm? If I remember correctly, this should be the human dimension number 1 secret realm, Yishuin said lightly. Olji looked at Yishuin next to him, and there was no sign of him making a move. Ignorant, soon this human dimension number 1 secret realm will become typing realm. Our senior brother Ian is about to enter the human dimension number 1 secret realm. Now the grace is probably coming, and he is on his way back. This half-step celestial realm middle stage master said with a bit of arrogance. He was strong enough to look down on Yishuin. Although he was nothing when surrounded by experts at the peak of the late stage of the half-step celestial realm, he still had a psychological advantage when facing Yishuin. Yishuin immediately understood that these people were probably Yin Taiping's subordinates. He was in the secret territory, yet he still had to put on such a big show. So many people were waiting on him. He was really putting on airs. Yishuin faintly smiled and said, "Unfortunately, let me tell you, your senior brother Ian is 100% going to fail." "What did you say?" The 3 experts of the half-step middle stage of the celestial realm glared angrily at Yishuin. In their minds, Yin Taiping was undoubtedly an extremely imposing image that could not be destroyed in the slightest. "That's because I'm the future master of this secret territory. TSK, you've decorated it so extravagantly, but now it's all just a wedding dress for me." Yishuin clicked his tongue and laughed. There was a somewhat sarcastic smile on his face. "How is this possible? You're lying!" The 3 mid-stage half-step sky human stage experts said in disbelief. "Lie? Just a few slaves like you are not qualified to make me lie. Get lost now, or don't blame me for being rude," Yishuin immediately said with a straight face. The complexions of those 3 people suddenly turned ugly. Being called a slave in front of their faces was undoubtedly a slap in the face on the spot. However, they had begun to somewhat believe in Yishuin's words. If it wasn't true, then this kid wouldn't have dared to come in front of them so arrogantly. And in the void in the distance, 2 figures stood in the void, quietly watching the scene in front of them. Among the 2 figures, a tall young man in a blue robe said, "Yin Taiping didn't come out himself, but let 2 of his subordinates come out." The young man had a jade-like face, was tall and handsome, and had an extremely outstanding temperament. And beside him was a middle-aged man in a red robe, with a resolute face and a burly body. Yin Taiping probably never dreamed that someone would get it before him. Since the human number 1 secret territory became empty, how many people have been eyeing it? The middle-aged man in the red robe said with a sneer. That Yin Taiping is a little too anxious. In fact, there are quite a lot of people who are qualified to compete for the human number 1 secret territory. But how many of them have applied to exchange for the human number 1 secret territory? None of them. There is no other reason. In terms of superior cultivation environment, the first few secret territories are actually about the same. The key is the status that the number 1 secret territory represents. Without the strength to suppress everyone, wouldn't it be asking for humiliation to occupy the number 1 secret territory? Yin Taiping is too anxious and naive. Does he really think that after occupying the number 1 secret territory, he will be the king of our area? This is a little interesting. This kid is only at the 8th level of the Transcendence realm. It feels like he came in by accident. If Yin Taiping knew about this, his expression would be very interesting. No matter what, newcomers always have a 1-year protection period. Within this year, Yin Taiping really can't do anything to him. However, since this kid provoked Yin Taiping, I'm afraid there will be trouble. The blue-robed young man said with the corner of his mouth slightly raised. This kid? Don't underestimate him. Among us, there are probably not many people who know this kid's background. I went out some time ago, but I heard of his prestige. The middle-aged man in the red robe said. Prestige? The blue-robed young man looked at the middle-aged man in the red robe with some surprise. With their pride and identity, how famous must they be for this middle-aged man in the red robe to mention their prestige? The blue-robed young man suddenly became a little curious. Originally, he only thought that Yishuan was just an ordinary kid at the 8th heaven of the Transcendence realm who didn't know the situation, so he didn't take him seriously. But after hearing the middle-aged man in the red robe mention it, it seemed that Yishuan had a reputation. Otherwise, he wouldn't be like this. So, there's more to it than meets the eye. Of course. Do you know the so-called Son of God, Yishuan, who entered the secret territory some time ago? The middle-aged man in the red robe said. Of course I remember. That kid is extremely powerful. In a short period of time, his cultivation has continuously improved. Now, my brother has already stepped into the late stage of the half-step celestial realm. People like him don't even have a bottleneck in cultivation. As long as he accumulates enough, he can naturally step into the celestial realm. He's really powerful. The blue-robed young man couldn't help but praise Yishuan when he mentioned him. For Yishuan, the Son of God, even someone as arrogant as him had to admit that some people did indeed have extraordinary talent. And just by relying on this extraordinary talent, it was enough to leave everyone else in the dust. The middle-aged man in the red robe said, And Yishuan only won second place in this year's ancestral worship ceremony. Don't tell me you're saying that he's the champion? This time, the blue-robed young man was completely surprised. This feeling was too far apart. That's not right. Even so, he's only at the 8th level of the Transcendence realm. He's nothing at all. Even if he can suppress Yishuan for a while, it's only by chance. Now, Yishuan's strength is extraordinary. He's already extraordinary. If that's what you think, then you're wrong. Back then, he defeated Yishuan with a cultivation that was 3 small realms lower than him. Can you imagine how exaggerated that scene was? The red-robed middle-aged man said. The blue-robed young man was stunned and didn't know what to say. He just stood there in a daze. The Son of God was almost invincible. Only the Son of God could deal with the Son of God. This was an iron law for many years. Not only did someone defeat the Son of God, but he did it with a cultivation that was 3 levels lower. This must be a myth. So, don't be fooled by his low cultivation level. If these people underestimate him, they'll definitely suffer a big loss. The middle-aged man looked at the experts of the half-step celestial realm of the Yin family with a disdainful expression. This person is stupid. Does he think this is outside? Here, only the fist is the strongest. Does he really think that this place belongs to him just because he paid? He's really stupid. A kid at the 8th level of the Transcendence realm dares to act arrogantly in front of us. He's courting death. So what if it's yours? This place has already been taken by our typing territory. If you know what's good for you, get out of here. Otherwise, you'll suffer. The master of the half-step celestial realm of the middle stage immediately roared. His body shot out like a cannonball and instantly rushed in front of Yishuan. His fist broke through the sky and directly landed on Yishuan. There was a hint of ridicule on his face as if he had seen Yishuan being blasted away. The other experts who were watching all of this also sighed regretfully. It was a pity that this newcomer clearly didn't understand what the rules were here. However, at this critical moment, Yishuan finally made a move. He stretched out one hand and appeared above the fist in an instant. Then, he patted it lightly. Bang! However, there was a loud sound like the collision of gold and iron. The master of the half-step celestial realm of the middle stage was suddenly slapped down like a cannonball. His body seemed to have suffered a huge force and almost disintegrated in the air. Suddenly blood flowed from all over his body. Swish! Accompanied by a deafening and shrill sound of breaking through the air, his body directly crashed into the human secret realm number 1 below, directly creating a big hole in the ground. Boom! For a time, there was a lot of smoke and dust. All of this happened too suddenly, just in an instant. From the moment that Yin Clan's expert in the middle stage of the half-step celestial realm made his move to Yishuan's final counterattack, it was only a split second. In the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint, the transformation had been completed. the master of the half-step celestial realm of the middle stage, who was originally aggressive, was lying in the big hole on the ground at this time. His body was constantly twitching, and no one knew whether all the bones in his body were broken or not. And Yishuin, who everyone thought was going to die, looked like nothing happened. He stood with his hands behind his back and looked at everyone coldly. Chapter 1332. Yishuin stood in the void with his hands behind his back, like a god, which stunned many people on the spot. It was completely different from what they had imagined. Yishuin, who was supposed to be beaten badly, was actually unscathed. Suddenly, everyone was a little speechless. Yishuin was a bit too fierce. A master of half-step celestial realm middle stage was lightly patted by him and hit the ground fiercely. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. You're right this time. This Yishuin is really extraordinary. No wonder he can defeat the Son of God. The blue-robed young man smiled slightly. Let's go. The blue-robed young man turned and was about to leave. What, you don't want to watch any more? The red-robed middle-aged man asked. What's there to say? Unless Yin Taiping comes back, these good-for-nothings are definitely not Yishuin's opponent. But even if Yin Taiping comes back, it's useless. The first year of protection period for newcomers is an iron law. No one can break it, or it'll be a death sentence. Even the people of our Yi family can't escape death, not to mention he's from the Yin family. When the time comes, it'll definitely be left unsettled. What's there to watch? The blue-robed young man said disdainfully. If you have this time, you might as well go into closed-door training. It's been 50 years, and you still haven't stepped into the celestial realm. The pressure is so great. Nowadays, young people are getting stronger and stronger. If we don't work hard, we won't even be able to see their backs. The red-robed middle-aged man curled his lips and said, Then you go. I want to stay and watch. TSK, it'll be good to see Yin Taiping's exasperated look. You're so boring. The blue-robed young man said speechlessly, then immediately turned and left. Yishuin disdainfully looked at the two masters of the Yin family who were already stunned in front of him and said, What, you still have something to say? As he spoke, he and Elder Yi went straight to the human's secret realm number 1. When our senior brother Taiping comes back, he won't let you go. The master of half-step celestial realm middle stage seemed to be angered by Yishuin's arrogant and domineering appearance at this time. He pointed at Yishuin and said in exasperation, Get out! Yishuin sneered and said, Don't be so shameless, all of you get lost, this is my place, if you don't get lost, don't blame me for being impolite to you. These two people and even all the experts of the Yin clan here were infuriated by Yishuin. Yin Taiping was also a very tyrannical person in the human secret realm, so he was usually arrogant and despotic. Many people were not in his eyes at all. It was rare for him to be treated like this. Not to mention, this kind of blatant disregard and humiliation. Yishuin ignored them and went straight into the number 1 secret realm. Seeing Yishuin, a fierce god, enter the No. 1 secret realm, these experts who were still in the number 1 secret realm immediately scattered like birds and beasts. No matter how unhappy they were with Yishuin's strength was still there. They could not ignore him even if they wanted to. They only had time to take away the half-step celestial realm middle stage expert who was almost smashed to pieces by Yishuin. Even the half-step celestial realm middle stage expert was slapped to the ground, and it seemed that all the bones in his body had been smashed to pieces. Not to mention that many of these people had just reached the half-step celestial realm, and some were only in the law manifestation realm. They were all Yin Taiping's subordinates. After entering the number 1 secret realm, Yishuin could really feel the richness of the spiritual qi, which was far beyond the imagination of the outside world. With the spiritual qi of an entire planet to support one person, the spiritual qi was naturally extremely abundant. The closer to the core area, the denser the spiritual qi. Even in the core area of a kilometer, the spiritual qi had completely liquefied. Even some places had begun to crystallize, which was naturally formed spirit crystals. And in the entire number 1 secret realm, there was a formation that continuously transported the spiritual chi to the center of the formation. And in the most central position, there stood a group of palaces, decorated with all kinds of extravagant and magnificent decorations, and there were many rooms reserved for servants. At this time, they were completely empty, and Yi Shiwen took advantage of them. These things shouldn't be here. All of them, disappear! Old Yi looked at the group of palaces, and just shook his head slightly. Then, his big hand suddenly grabbed out, and the entire group of palaces was uprooted as if the earth was shaking. Boom! The entire group of palaces seemed to be pulled out by some huge force, and floated in the void. Then, Old Yi let out another cold snort, and the group of palaces completely turned into powder in the air. Countless people in the surroundings were dumbstruck. Many people thought that Old Yi was just an old servant of Yi Shiwen. This was very normal. After all, many people regarded this place as their lair. So, many elites would leave their wealth here. So, it was normal for them to bring many subordinates and servants. Although Old Ye's temperament did not seem like that of a servant, it was not a big deal. What really surprised them was that this old servant actually had such amazing means. One must know that this group of palaces only looked magnificent, but in fact, it was not like this. These palaces were all refined into magic weapons, and could be taken away at any time. In fact, not only in typing, but they were also like this, refining their residences into magic weapons, so that they could take away at any time and settle down at any time. But it was turned into powder so easily with a cold snort. The depth of Old Ye's skill was enough to shock the world. This old man is amazing. What is his relationship with Yi Shiwen? Seeing that shocking scene, the red-robed, middle-aged man could not help but stroke his chin. He grew curious. There was a thick aura of death swirling around the old man's body. In other words, the so-called Sky Human Decay 5 had arrived. Everyone could see that. However, to be able to possess such a level of power while in the Sky Human Decay 5 state, just how strong must he be when he was at his peak? He must have already stepped into the Sky Human stage. With such a celestial realm expert looking after him, it was no wonder that the law enforcement hall dared to let him occupy the human number 1 secret realm. At this time, Yi Shiwen grasped at the void, grabbed a token, and then went to the place where the palaces were uprooted. There was a stone platform, and Yi Shiwen placed the token on the stone platform. Suddenly, the entire human number 1 secret realm began to rumble and operate, and the arrays that were originally in a deep sleep began to wake up one by one. Everyone knew that Yi Shiwen had completely controlled the human number 1 secret realm, because it did not mean that he could truly occupy the secret realm just by occupying it. To truly control the secret realm, the token was still needed. Only with the token of the entire secret realm could one truly control the entire secret realm. Taking typing for example. Although he had already moved his things in, why did he still need to apply to the higher-ups to enter the human number 1 secret realm? Because only by obtaining the approval of the higher-ups and obtaining the control token could one truly control the human number 1 secret realm. Without the token, one would only be an illegal user and could be driven out at any time. However, if one had the token, it would be a completely different story. It meant that one had complete control over this pocket dimension, and could even use the various magic arrays within to protect oneself. If a powerful enemy attacked, one could also borrow the power of the magic arrays to protect oneself. The experts of the Yin family floated in the void and stared blankly at Yi Shiwen, who had completely taken control of the human number 1 secret realm. They were somewhat speechless. No one had expected that things would turn out like this. What should we do? Are we just going to watch this little thief steal the human number 1 secret realm? At this time, an expert of the Yin family asked the 2 remaining experts of the half-step celestial realm. Go, let's go. When senior brother typing comes back, we'll settle the score with him. The expressions of the 2 experts of the half-step celestial realm changed every now and then. In the end, they could only clench their teeth and say. In the face of the powerful Yi Shiwen, they could only do so. In terms of strength, they were no match for Yi Shiwen. In terms of qualifications, they were not qualified at all. They only followed in Taiping here to practice, and were his subordinates. There was a huge gap between their identities and Yi Shiwen, the owner of a secret realm. Even if they made a fuss to the higher-ups, no one would protect them. At this time, they could only wait quietly for Yin Taiping to come back and solve the problem. This matter was beyond the scope of their ability to deal with. Seeing that the people of the Yin family had left, everyone withdrew their gazes. At this time, all the arrays in the human number 1 secret realm had been activated, directly blocking everyone's divine senses and vision. Since they could not see anything, there was no point in staying any longer. But everyone knew that this matter would not be taken lightly. Because they all knew very well that Yin Taiping was definitely not a person who would swallow humiliation. With his usual arrogant and domineering style, he would never swallow this humiliation obediently. But looking at Yi Shiwen, he did not seem to be a person who would swallow humiliation. Facing the people of the Yin family who occupied his secret realm, he beat and scolded them as he pleased. He did not care about Yin Taiping's face at all. As the saying goes, when beating a dog, one must look at its master. Yi Shiwen's behavior had undoubtedly shed all pretense of cordiality with Yin Taiping. Since he had shed all pretense of cordiality with Yin Taiping, then there would definitely continue to be conflicts between the two sides. These two people with strong personalities would not easily give in. The real show was yet to come. Everyone withdrew their gazes, but their divine senses were still there. Once there was any movement, it would attract a large number of experts to come and watch. After activating the arrays, Yi Shiwen took back the token. Only then did he complete the control of the human number 1 secret realm. Chapter 1333. At that time, as long as he held the token in his hand, he could control all kinds of formations in the entire human secret realm. This was somewhat similar to the martial instruments that were refined outside. But relatively speaking, this kind of formation had been completed in advance, and he did not need to refine it himself. Similarly, it was not allowed to be refined because it was left for the latecomers. These people were just one of the users, and they were not allowed to destroy the overall structure. You have shed all pretense of cordiality like this. When Yin Taiping comes back, can you deal with him? Old Yi said with a faint smile. Even if he comes back, he can't break the formation. Besides, isn't there still a 1-year newcomer protection period? After a year, who knows who will be the winner? Yi Shiwen said confidently. Of course, with the protection of these formations, even if someone came to challenge them, they could choose to hide in the formation. In this case, they could also avoid the fate of being driven out. However, most people would not do this. The reason was very simple. Anyone who practiced martial arts must be courageous and diligent. Once there was fear, it might even form an inner demon. If it was not good, it might even form a chi deviation, and it was very likely that they would not be able to make any progress in this life. If they could not overcome the inner demon in their heart, then the person's achievements would be limited. Therefore, no one would be so shameless that they would rather be defeated than avoid a fight. It was precisely because of this that this sense of crisis forced everyone to cultivate with all their might. Otherwise, they might be defeated by others. At that time, they wouldn't be able to keep their position, and that would be extremely shameful. Especially when Yi Shiwen occupied the human number 1 secret realm, he became the focus of countless people's attention. Many people were staring at this human number 1 secret realm, because the human number 1 secret realm often meant the existence that dominated the human number 1 secret realm. It was the king under the celestial realm. This was not a title that anyone had such qualifications to bear. If it was just an ordinary secret realm, then the competitors would also be ordinary people. However, it was destined that those who dared to covet it were the best under the celestial realm, and any one of them could be extremely tyrannical. Now, even if Yin Taiping came, he was not very worried. There was still a 1-year newcomer protection period. During this protection period, no one could attack the human number 1 secret realm. This mystic realm will be renamed as the Thousand Feathers Mystic Realm, Yi Shiwen said in a sonorous and forceful voice, directly following the name of Qian faction in Yuan school. Well, since you are so determined, then let's start. I will carry out comprehensive training for you in the future. I have also learned about your situation from the hall master. You are missing too many parts, and there are also many places that need to be supplemented. You have to start from the beginning, said Old Yi. From today onwards, you will learn all kinds of systematic knowledge in the morning. In the afternoon, I will guide you in the cultivation of martial arts. In the evening, you will practice. At the same time, I will use various medicinal herbs to make a medicinal bath. You will soak in this medicinal bath for more than 12 hours every day. I can see that you should be practicing an extraordinary body cultivation technique, but at the same time, when you practice this body cultivation technique, it will also hurt the foundation of your body. Now you have to use the medicinal bath every day to treat it. After you have passed the foundation building stage, you will start to make up for the lost lifespan. I don't know how many battles you have experienced, but those martial arts that burn lifespan should be used as little as possible. If you are not a disciple of Yi family, and not a heaven's pride cultivated by the law enforcement hall, with your situation, I am afraid that in a few years, you will die of old age, and the celestial decay will come early. Do you understand? Said Old Yi. Understood. I will obey Old Ye's words. Yi Shiwen cupped his hands and said. After saying that, Old Yi directly waved his hand and a huge book vault appeared in the void. With a loud bang, it fell not far in front of Yi Shiwen. The door of the entire book vault opened, and the fragrance of books floated in the air. Bursts of reading aloud mixed with the fragrance of books floated out. Yi Shiwen looked at the book vault and discovered that these bursts of reading aloud were actually coming from the books themselves. These books actually had a spiritual nature, and then automatically read the contents of those books, and could transform into a book demon. Yi Shiwen had also entered such a library before, so he knew a few things about this kind of thing. The simplest way was to devour the book demons. These book demons were condensed from the essence of the book, so directly devouring them was equivalent to immediately understanding the essence of the book. Relying on this method, he was able to understand a lot of principles in a short period of time, and by drawing analogies, he was able to comprehend a lot of things. But obviously he couldn't do it here. If you want to practice to the celestial being realm, you need a lot of knowledge. If you want to practice to the celestial being realm in the future without any knowledge barrier, then you must master the contents of this book vault, and moreover, master them, so that quantitative change can lead to qualitative change, and you can comprehend by analogy. Do you understand? Old Yi said. Understood. However, when he saw so many books, he couldn't help but have a feeling of sucking in a breath of cold air. With so many books, how long would it take him to read them? But thinking about it, there was no other way, because others might have already learned this knowledge through various means in the past hundreds of years, so naturally, they wouldn't feel that there was much to learn, but he wanted to rush in a short period of time, and just thinking about it gave him a headache. From now on, you must read 10 books every day, and I will specially explain the scriptures to you, Old Yi said. Yi Shiwen clenched his teeth and nodded. His foundation was severely lacking, and at this time, he could only rush to strengthen like this. Yi Shiwen had a photographic memory with his current cultivation. However, just remembering didn't mean that he would be able to comprehend it. He didn't know how much time it would take to comprehend it by rote. However, it was different with Old Ye's explanation on the side. His explanation would definitely save Yi Shiwen a lot of hard work considering his cultivation and realm. Yi Shiwen naturally didn't have any opinion on this. Alright, then let's start. When Old Yi was young, he was obviously a powerful figure, and he did things in a rush, without any sloppiness. He directly took out a book from the book vault and said, "And alright." Yi Shiwen nodded, sat down, and listened to Old Ye's explanation. Let's talk about the Continent Encyclopedia first. Old Yi started talking to that book. This Continent Encyclopedia was a historical and geographical book compiled by the Yi family, and it was completely different from the version that was circulated outside. Many of the versions that were circulated outside were adapted from myths and legends. Because the ancient Barrens continent had a long history, many facts had already been submerged in the dust of history. And no one could live for such a long time. Hence, for things that happened in the distant past, they could only be based on myths and legends. However, the continent encyclopedia compiled by the Yi family was different. Many of the information in it were more accurate. Even if there were speculations, they were in a more certain tone, and rarely used myths and legends. Because the Yi family had been established in the ancient Barrens continent for countless years. For many people, the things that happened in the distant past were no different from myths and legends. However, the Yi family had personally experienced it, and they knew a lot of inside stories and history. Hence, the credibility of this book was extremely high, and it was completely different from the version that was circulated outside, which could only be viewed as supernatural legends. Old Yi explained to Yishiwen, from the distant chaotic era, to the barbaric era, to the mythological era, all the way to the modern era. It was unknown how many tens of thousands of years of history were involved, and many of them were personally experienced by the descendants of the Yi family. If it was an ordinary person, they might not be able to finish explaining even after a few years. However, Old Yi and Yishiwen weren't ordinary people. They were both martial arts experts who had achieved success. Hence, they wouldn't feel tired even if they continued explaining. Because the content of this encyclopedia of the continent was too much, it was impossible to finish it in a short time. Therefore, Old Yi only explained for about an hour or so, and then stopped. He didn't even finish the many legends of the barbarian era, but even so, it had already made Yishiwen feel as if he had suddenly become enlightened. This was a spiritual sublimation. The more he knew, the more confident he became. Old Yi explained some of the recorded heavenly treasures to Yishiwen after explaining a part of the Continental Encyclopedia. Old Yi then explained some of the heavenly treasures that had been recorded in the records of the ancient Yi family. Yishiwen felt as if he had seen many heavenly treasures in the past due to the ancient and profound heritage of the Yi family. Yishiwen felt as if his horizons had been broadened. There were so many heavenly treasures in this world. Yishiwen had never heard of or seen many of them. This was completely different from when Yemo explained to him. Yemo might know more than the records of the Yi clan. In fact, he even knew many specialties of the myriad worlds. After all, he had once followed the Devil King to conquer many worlds. However, it was impossible for him to explain to Yishiwen in such a systematic manner. He could only explain whatever he encountered. Therefore, Yishiwen's vision had always been more profound than it was wide. In addition to these heavenly treasures, Old Yi would also explain to Yishiwen the anecdotes of various major races, as well as various other things that were related to cultivation. He would explain everything to Yishiwen for a long time in the future so that he would be able to master all of these things. However, this also required time. Soon, the morning had passed. Although there was no distinction between day and night in this void, it was still very easy for experts like them to distinguish the time. Chapter 1334. After the morning had passed, it was time to give pointers to Yishiwen's moves in the afternoon. You can display all the martial arts that you're practicing now. Although I haven't practiced it, but martial arts have always been about mastering one method, and mastering one principle leads to mastering 100 principles. Old Yi said. Yishiwen nodded. Except for the Devil's Wings and the Yuanqi Ball, which couldn't be shown to the public, the others could also be shown to the public. Buried Sword Secrets, Flaming Blade, Shattered Star Fist, 8 Treasures Universe Cauldron, Severing Sky Finger. Yishiwen demonstrated all of his martial arts one by one. Elder Yi looked at him without uttering a single word until Yishiwen finished demonstrating all of his martial arts. Then, he meaningfully looked at Yishiwen and said, Yishiwen, you have learned a lot of martial arts, but each of them has been practiced by you to an extremely profound level. This is absolutely a miracle for someone of your age. I think you should have some other secrets. Generally speaking, the martial arts that a martial artist learned were generally of the same origin. For example, if the martial artist learned a blade technique at the beginning, then the martial arts he would learn in the future would also be a blade technique. This way, it would be easier to practice, and it would also be easier to practice to the extreme. It was precisely because the lifespan of a person was limited. In other words, no one had infinite time to waste. How to improve the cultivation to the highest level in a limited time had become the focus of everyone's attention. Generally speaking, specialization was also the best method. Even the most talented Heaven's Pride experts couldn't fully understand all martial arts. They could only use the method of understanding one principle to understand 100 principles. However, Yi Shiwen's martial arts were quite disorderly. Moreover, there was no relationship between the previous martial arts and the later martial arts. In other words, the martial arts that he learned before and after might have no relationship at all. An ordinary person would have been confused if he had been in Yi Shiwen's shoes. Yi Shiwen had never learned any finger techniques in the past. But now, he had to learn a top-level heaven-level martial art like sky-severing finger. It was simply impossible for an ordinary person to do this. All martial arts were like this. It needed to be learned step by step. If one didn't understand the foundation of finger techniques, how could he learn such a top-level martial art? However, Yi Shiwen had the mysterious space. Even if he didn't have the foundation, he could still forcibly learn it. Elder Yi, you don't have to say anything. It's normal for them to have secrets. Those peerless geniuses are all arrogant and unruly. They have had many fortuitous encounters, so it's normal for them to have their own secrets. The clan won't investigate them one by one. As long as they're not targeting the clan, it's fine. Elder Yi interrupted Yi Shiwen's words at this time. He didn't care about Yi Shiwen's secret. Generally speaking, which genius of the Yi clan didn't have his own secret? If it's an ordinary person, my suggestion would be to give up on learning miscellaneous things and focus on one of them. Be it sword art, blade art, fist art, palm art, or finger art, any one of them is profound. If you can learn any one of them to the peak, you'll be invincible in the ancient Baron's continent. Yi Shiwen didn't refute. He understood the principle of the 3,000 great ways. However, you're different. I realize that although the martial arts you've learned are miscellaneous, they're also very refined. I can see that your talent isn't that kind of spiritual energy. I think you have other secrets, so I won't say much. Although I don't know how you've learned and mastered these martial arts, I also realize that your foundation isn't good enough. It seems that your understanding of the most basic parts of these martial arts isn't good enough. Although the foundation seems unremarkable, it's the most crucial and fundamental thing for any martial arts. A tall building starts from the ground, and the foundation must be strong enough to withstand it. Elder Yi said. So, in addition to guiding you on the main points of these martial arts, I will also guide you on the most basic parts. Although you already have some foundation, it's still far from enough. At this stage, let's talk about sword arts first. I realize that among so many martial arts, your understanding of sword arts is the deepest. The sword is the gentleman among all weapons. This sentence truly describes the essence of sword arts. A true sword cultivator must move forward with indomitable will. No one can stop you from moving forward. You must have the courage to break through everything. This is also the reason why a gentleman is fearless. As Elder Yi spoke, he suddenly coughed violently. His face turned red, and he coughed out some blood. Elder Yi, are you okay? Yi Shiwen immediately asked nervously. I'm fine. Elder Yi wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said, It's just an old problem. When I was young, I also experienced many fierce battles and left behind a lot of internal injuries. It was fine when I was young, but when I really reached the angel's decay stage, all of them broke out. However, it only looks serious. It won't take my life for a while. Yi Shiwen looked a little sad. This was also the fate of all warriors. When they were young, they fought in all directions and were awe-inspiring. However, the accumulated internal injuries would all break out when they were old. When they were young, they didn't take care of their bodies. When they were old, their bodies would take revenge. So, you can't follow in my footsteps. The internal injuries in your body will only be more than mine. If you don't get rid of them, they will become your fatal flaw when you reach the pinnacle in the future. Old Yi looked at Yi Shiwen and said in a serious tone. At this time, Yi Shiwen seemed to really understand, but he also didn't understand. Reach the peak, what did Elder Yi mean? I really don't have much time left. I thought that I could only silently wait for my death. I didn't expect that I would be able to cultivate a hero for Yi family before I die. My wish is enough. Elder Yi smiled and looked calm. He didn't have the slightest fear of impending death. For him, the angel's decay stage might have started hundreds of years ago, and he should have gotten over it long ago. This was completely different from suddenly facing death. Yi Shiwen's expression was somewhat sad. Although today was the first time he had seen Yi Lao, but he still had a very good impression of Yi Lao. Seeing that Yi Lao was thinking of cultivating outstanding talents for the Yi family even before his death, Yi Shiwen thought of the old head of Yi Yuan's school, who had been struggling for thousands of years, and even in the face of Angel's 5 decays, he had used a secret technique to seal his own vitality, only hoping that he could help Yi Yuan's school at the most critical time. With this remnant body, he burned his last journey. The silk of a spring silkworm will be exhausted until death, and the tears of a candle will dry when it turns to ashes. What's there to be sad about? I have lived for thousands of years. What haven't I obtained? What haven't I enjoyed? I've been awe-inspiring. I've been down and out. I've obtained everything. I've held a high position of power. I've also lost everything. Relatives, friends, comrades in arms. Now I'm the only one left who is still struggling for life. Old man, Yi said with a look of relief. I've gained everything and lost everything, so it doesn't matter anymore. Isn't life like this? Gain and lose, this is the common sense of life. It's just that I haven't been able to reach the peak and see the truth of immortality. This old man is still a bit unwilling. In the future, it all depends on your generation. Yi Shiwen sighed and didn't comfort him. Elder Yi was so open-minded that he didn't need to be comforted. Well, it's precisely because I don't have much time left that I must teach you as much as possible. Your innate talent isn't the most outstanding I've ever seen. In fact, you should be the most ordinary just by looking at your appearance. However, you have something that others don't have. You have a tenacious heart. The Yi family will have to rely on you in the future. Elder Ye's complexion gradually returned to normal. Then, he continued to explain some basics of swordsmanship to Yi Shiwen. Elder Yi deserved to be called the former top expert of the Yi family. The way he looked at martial arts was completely different from Yi Shiwen's level. Although it was the simplest thing, he could explain the most profound truth. Every word was like a gem. Every word was like a golden jade. An ordinary person wouldn't have the opportunity to listen to such a profound explanation even if they wanted to. However, Yi Shiwen had such an opportunity now. He had only listened for an afternoon, but he suddenly felt that his understanding of swordsmanship had almost reached a new level. In the past, Yi Shiwen had always lacked such a systematic understanding. He had been practicing more than theory. Now that he had made up for this shortcoming, his progress was so obvious that he could feel it all the time. In this way, the explanation of swordsmanship continued until the evening. Yi Shiwen finally ended. Although he was somewhat reluctant to get out of this state, he also knew that there was still a long way to go. He really couldn't be anxious. Then, Elder Yi directly took away Yi Shiwen's 8-treasure universe cauldron and began to boil it on the spot. Yi Shiwen added a series of the most precious medicinal herbs at a dazzling speed. Suddenly, the soup in the 8 treasures universe cauldron started to boil, and a group of unusual flames started to burn under the 8 treasures universe cauldron. The temperature during the process was unknown. Your 8-treasure universe cauldron is very amazing. It should be a top-level heavenly-level magic tool. I once saw it in a senior's personal letter. It was obtained from the treasure house. I didn't expect it to fall into your hands, Elder Yi said with some emotion. He was erudite and had a broad memory. He had dabbled in the Yi family's information that could be made public and could not be made public. With his identity and strength, The Yi family naturally didn't need to keep any secrets from him. It is impossible for an ordinary medicinal cauldron to withstand the boiling of my unusual flames. In this 8-treasure universe cauldron, Yi Shiwen actually saw that those medicinal herbs had directly manifested. They had manifested their appearance when they were alive. Many of them were glowing with vitality. At first glance, it was obvious that they were extraordinary. This is an ancient recipe that I have in my hands. It is extremely beneficial for your body tempering, Elder Yi said. Jump in a moment. You will have to soak in it for more than 12 hours every day. Yi Shiwen, get out of here! Just when Yi Shiwen was a little worried, a loud shout came from outside the secret territory. Chapter 1335. Yi Shiwen, get out here! Just when Yi Shiwen was a little worried, a loud shout came from outside the secret realm. Yin Taiping. Although Yi Shiwen had never seen Yin Taiping before, he was able to judge almost immediately that only Yin Taiping would appear here at this time. He came a little earlier than Yi Shiwen had expected, and it seemed that he was also very anxious. Yi Shiwen glanced at Elder Yi, who nodded and said, Go ahead and meet him first. It just so happens that I also need time to decoct the medicinal materials on this ancient prescription. At this time, the scene in the 8-treasure universe cauldron was shocking, and all kinds of medicinal materials were revealed. For a moment, it was like coming to a treasure mountain. Yi Shiwen nodded and immediately jumped out of the 1,000-feather realm without hesitation. He saw a black-robed young man standing in the air. His face was as white as jade, and he wore a feather crown on his head. He was dressed in a luxurious robe, and he was dressed like a noble son. And behind him were the masters of the Yin family, who had left and returned. At this time, they all followed this black-robed young man, and at this time, they came up aggressively. Yi Shiwen did not need to look to know that this young man should be Yin Taiping. The aura on his body was extremely powerful, faintly integrated with the surrounding void, infinitely close to the aura of a master of the celestial realm. He had truly reached the invincible realm of the peak of the late stage of the celestial realm, only a step away from the real celestial realm. Such a person would be a big figure wherever he went. Because the masters of the celestial realm would not appear all the time, so generally, the masters of the half-step celestial realm could be regarded as big figures. At this time, there was almost immediately a lot of divine thoughts in the surroundings. Many masters had been paying attention to this matter, but before Yin Taiping was there, so the storm temporarily stopped. But now that Yin Taiping had appeared again, it was likely that there would be a storm between the two sides again. Yin Taiping moves very quickly. It seems that he should have immediately rushed over after receiving the news. Not only that, but looking at his aggressive appearance, it seems that if this Yi Shiwen is not taught a lesson, he should not be willing to give up. He is a ruthless person, but this Yi Shiwen is also extraordinary. The champion of this clan's tournament has even defeated the God's Child, so he's no pushover. Because he had easily defeated an expert at the peak of the intermediate stage of half-step celestial being realm, many people suddenly had a whole new level of respect for him. Originally, they thought that he was either a fool or simply didn't know anything and had jumped into someone's trap. But now it seemed that it was not the case at all. Once Yi Shiwen knelt down, it meant that he was afraid. Then he would not be able to raise his head in front of Yin Taiping in the future, and he would have to live in Yin Taiping's shadow for the rest of his life. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen's eyes flickered. He quickly realized that Yin Taiping would not only take away the number 1 secret realm, but also destroy his confidence and pride, so that he would have to live in Yin Taiping's shadow for the rest of his life. Kneel down? What a joke! Do you think you are a god? You actually want me to kneel down? Yi Shiwen sneered. Even in the face of a master like Yin Taiping, he absolutely had no intention of compromising. This number 1 secret realm originally belonged to him. Although Yin Taiping had taken a fancy to it first, so what? The one who made the first move was stronger. Now, Yin Taiping wanted to snatch his 1,000-feather realm, and yet he was so arrogant and domineering. This was simply too much. He did not take Yishiwen seriously at all. He really thought that Yishiwen was a nobody who could be bullied by others. You don't want to kneel down now, but you won't have the chance to kneel down and apologize to me later, Yin Taiping coldly said. He looked arrogantly at Yishiwen. It seemed as if a noble god was looking at a lowly commoner. No chance? Yishiwen was so angry that he almost laughed. Not only was Yin Taiping aggressive, but he also looked like he was giving Yishiwen a chance. It really made Yishiwen not know whether to laugh or cry. You are not bad, you are very proud, but I want to see if you can still be so stubborn when I break your legs later. At this time, Yin Taiping said, and suddenly moved. His figure seemed to be shuttling through the universe. In an instant, there were countless shadows in the void, forming a huge straight line, and instantly rushed in front of Yishiwen. His speed was so fast that those ordinary masters of the half-step celestial realm could not see him at all. Only those masters of the half-step late stage of the celestial realm could catch some traces of his figure. In the face of Yin Taiping, who directly rushed to kill, although his action was very sudden, Yishiwen had long been prepared. He immediately shouted and operated the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron. Immediately, an 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron appeared above his head, protecting him in it. It was condensed by the real elemental energy, and the deity had been used as a medicine cauldron by Elder Yi to boil some medicinal materials. Bang! Yin Taiping's big hand instantly spread out, and after a loud sharp sound directly tore in the air, it fiercely smashed on the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron above Yishiwen's head. A loud sound of gold and iron colliding spread out in all directions. The 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron above Yishiwen's head was smashed on the spot, and Yishiwen's figure was directly blasted out from more than a dozen miles like a cannonball. Only then did he manage to unload the force on his body and stabilize himself. He faintly looked at Yin Taiping with some horror. He did not expect Yin Taiping's strength to be so terrifying. In terms of comprehensive strength, Yin Taiping was much more terrifying than Ting Tongtian's spirit doppelganger. He was really infinitely close to the celestial realm, and even had the power that some celestial realm masters could have. For example, this terrifying speed that was almost like teleportation. If it were an ordinary person, they would not be able to defend at all and would be directly blasted out. Maybe they would not even have time to react, but Yishiwen was different. His speed was even faster than Yin Taiping's, and his whole body was wrapped in the power of thunder and lightning, stimulating his body to the limit. And the masters who were watching were even more shocked than Yishiwen. On one hand, they were shocked by Yin Taiping's strength, especially his few opponents. Even his brother was like this Yin Taiping seemed to be even more terrifying than before. On the other hand, they were shocked by Yishiwen's ability to resist attacks. Even an ordinary master of half-step celestial realm late stage would be seriously injured by Yin Taiping's frontal attack. Compared to Yin Taiping, an ordinary master of half-step celestial realm late stage was like a different world. It was not like the same realm at all. It showed how powerful Yin Taiping was, but it also showed how powerful Yishiwen was. He could actually block Yin Taiping's attack, and it was even under the situation of Yin Taiping's sneak attack. With his cultivation of Law Phase 8th level, this kind of performance was already amazing, and everyone could not help but be shocked. At this time, thinking of the information about Yishiwen that they had investigated before, they could only say, as expected of the person who defeated the Son of God in the family ancestral worship ceremony, he really had some skills. Chapter 1336. Yishiwen stood in the formation and looked at Yin Taiping coldly. After the qi and blood in his body surged, it was quickly suppressed. Yin Taiping was also a little surprised, but he did not chase after them. Firstly, it was impossible for him to break the formation in the number 1 mystery realm. Moreover, it was used to guard against external enemies. If he destroyed it, it would be a great sin if the higher-ups blamed him. Secondly, it was because of the 1-year rookie protection period. If he could not force Yishiwen to leave voluntarily, then within this year, he really could not do anything to the human number 1 secret realm. The reason why he made a move just now was to get back at Yishuin. This was not the same as occupying the human secret realm number 1. He did not have the guts to occupy it by force. However, if he could control Yishuin with that move just now and make him leave on his own, then he could barely make up a reason. Unfortunately, the attack did not succeed. Now that Yishuin entered the formation, it was like shrinking into a tortoise shell. He really could not do anything. This kind of situation was indeed very rare, not to mention encountering a newcomer who would be protected for a year. Generally, newcomers would choose to cultivate in secret realms that were located at the back. In those remote places, whoever wanted to fight for it would do so. However, Yishuin had directly entered the human number 1 secret realm. This made the 1-year protection for newcomers, which was almost forgotten, come into everyone's sight again. It directly made Yin Taiping want to vomit blood. Moreover, if Yishuin kept hiding, relying on the formation that could even block the attacks of celestial realm masters, Yin Taiping really could not do anything. Let alone the 1-year rookie protection period, he could not do anything for 10 years or even 100 years. Thinking of this, he was a little depressed and wanted to vomit blood. Yin Taiping, you should know the 1-year rookie protection period, right? Yishuin just said with a sneer. In his heart, he thought that if Yin Taiping dared to rush in, he would immediately activate the formation and beat him until even his mother could not recognize him. However, it was a pity that Yin Taiping was not so stupid, and his IQ was not so low. He just glared at Yishuin and said, "Okay, 1 year. Let me see how many years you can waste. Kneel to me now, and I can let you go. But after a year, it will not be so simple. If you have the ability, you can hide in there for the rest of your life." Yishuin sneered and said, "Then wait for a year." Facing the stubborn Yishuin, Yin Taiping was so angry that his teeth itched, but there was nothing he could do. He could only turn around and leave with the Yin family, looking quite embarrassed. Yishuin didn't blindly rush out to fight with Yin Taiping, and Yin Taiping didn't lose his mind and forcefully rush into the number 1 secret territory. Yishuin couldn't help but feel a little disappointed, especially for many people who came to watch the show. They were even more disappointed. However, they quickly remembered that it did not matter if they could not fight now. A year later, there would be an even bigger conflict between the two sides sooner or later. The 1-year rookie protection period was just delaying the conflict by a year. Moreover, judging from the situation of the fight just now, Yishuin had fallen into a disadvantageous position. However, he hadn't been thoroughly defeated by Yin Taiping. This was already very Taiping. Time was needed to verify what would happen after a year. Seeing that Yin Taiping and the others had already left, Yishuin turned around and returned to the array. Old Yi was still boiling various medicinal herbs at this time. "Go in!" Old Yi pointed at the octagonal treasure cauldron and said. Yishuin jumped in without any hesitation. He operated observing person scripture, and began to absorb these medicinal herbs. These medicinal herbs contained a huge amount of energy that almost burst his meridians. His meridians had already been forged countless times because he was cultivating tyrant body. If an ordinary person were to be replaced in his place, he wouldn't be able to withstand such a boiling process. In fact, his meridians would have exploded on the spot. Yishuin felt pain all over his body. It was as if a large amount of energy had been instilled into every cell of his body, making his whole body swell up and then explode. Calm your mind and absorb the medicinal efficacy of these herbs. It will be very beneficial for your future cultivation. I can see that your body refining technique is very overbearing and requires a large amount of energy. You may not be able to completely refine these medicinal efficacy in a short period of time, but it will be very beneficial for your future cultivation. Old man, Yi said lightly. And Yishuin nodded and directly dived into the potion, enduring the intense pain. Every minute and second felt like a year to him. Time passed day by day as if it were a year. Time was like an hourglass, moving forward without looking back. In the blink of an eye, 1 year passed in the blink of an eye, and the 1-year newcomer protection period was about to end. It could be said that Yi Shiwen had been reborn in this 1 year's time. The biggest change was reflected in his temperament. The original Yi Shiwen was somewhat ignorant, especially when it came to the whole world, and he didn't know much. However, things were different now. Old Yi had been explaining to Yi Shiwen for more than a year, ranging from astronomy and geography to humanities and history, as well as various kinds of cultivation knowledge. He had constantly broadened his horizons. His temperament had completely changed in just over a year. He had gained a bit more of a scholarly aura. He now had the bearing of a learned scholar. Ordinary people might need hundreds of years or even hundreds of years to accumulate so much knowledge, but in this more than a year, he suddenly made up for it. His horizons had also been expanded countless times, and the direction in which he looked at problems was much further than before. If the original Yi Shiwen had the horizons of a primary school student, then now, although he was not yet a postdoctoral, academician, or so on, but at least at the level of a college student, and had the basic understanding. In addition to the accumulation of knowledge, Yi Shiwen's understanding of martial arts had also undergone earth-shaking changes. Previously, with the support of the mysterious space, he did not feel that there was too much of a problem. Anyway, no matter how out of line martial arts, no matter how big the gap with the previous martial arts, or even if there was no foundation, as long as there was the support of the mysterious space, he could quickly make a breakthrough. There was no problem at all. But under the guidance of Old Man Yi, he found countless loopholes in his understanding of martial arts, and these loopholes were simply fatal to others. When Old Man Yi guided Yi Shiwen for a while, he was also stunned, because he never thought that Yi Shiwen's foundation would be so poor, although it was not that he did not have any foundation in martial arts, but there was no doubt that it was like pulling a seedling to help it grow. It was really a miracle that he could come this far. But in addition to this, what really surprised him was Yi Shiwen's comprehension ability. He found that no matter how many martial arts theories and knowledge he put forward, Yi Shiwen could comprehend them in the shortest time, as if there was no knowledge barrier at all. No matter what aspect of martial arts, there was no cognitive difficulty. He seemed to be omnipotent, because for an average person, no matter how talented they were, they would certainly have their own areas of expertise. But Yi Shiwen did not seem to have any areas that he was good at. Generally, being good at everything also meant mediocrity. But Yi Shiwen was different. He was really good at everything. Blade techniques, spear techniques, sword techniques, fist techniques, palm techniques, 18 kinds of martial arts, he could quickly grasp, understand and digest them. This made Old Man Yi have some doubts about himself. He originally thought that Yi Shiwen's innate talent was not very strong. Although these could not be seen in detail, in the eyes of a real practitioner, it was very easy to see whether a person had talent or not. In the eyes of a real practitioner, a person with real talent, in the state of opening the magic eye, would absolutely have a thick destiny. And the spirit energy would be oppressive. Some would even be able to soar to the sky. These people were the group of geniuses who couldn't be more talented. However, the spirit energy above Yi Shiwen's head didn't look that amazing. Yi Shiwen had become completely different from before after so many years of cultivation. The development of a human's brain was limited. Being able to develop a small part of it was already considered as having extraordinary spiritual wisdom. But these were often innate. Acquired practice could also continue to develop the brain. The so-called the more the brain is used, the more flexible it becomes. If Yi Shiwen's innate talent was considered mediocre at the beginning, then the current Yi Shiwen's brain absolutely could be regarded as a genius. But even so, he could only be regarded as an ordinary genius, not to mention compared to a peerless heaven's pride expert like the Son of God. In the eyes of Old Man Yi, who was used to seeing all kinds of geniuses, Yi Shiwen's aptitude was just ordinary, but in his eyes, such an ordinary aptitude Yi Shiwen comprehended at a frightening speed. Never needing him to explain twice, Yi Shiwen could quickly understand. At first, Old Yi thought that Yi Shiwen was putting up a strong front, but he soon discovered that no matter what kind of question he asked, or what kind of martial arts theory he had, Yi Shiwen was able to answer fluently. Moreover, he was able to put forward his own opinion, and was absolutely not forced to memorize even some of the martial arts theory, which was relatively difficult for him to understand without any hindrance. This made Old Man Yi couldn't help but doubt his own judgment. Could it be that he was really wrong? This Yi Shiwen was not beautiful on the outside, but a person who was elegant on the inside? This wasn't unprecedented. There were some people who looked ordinary on the outside, but were very elegant on the inside, and needed constant digging to unearth, and these people, without exception, would eventually have earth-shattering achievements. However, he couldn't imagine that Yi Shiwen's body had a mysterious space. No matter how profound his explanation was, it could be analyzed by this mysterious space, and then branded into the depths of Yi Shiwen's divine sense. This naturally consumed a huge amount of spirit crystals. However, the Yi clan didn't lack spirit crystals. Especially, the law enforcement hall had decided to devote all their efforts to nurture Yi Shiwen. So, they had sent all kinds of spirit crystals to the Yi clan. Chapter 1337. Elder Yi could even automatically condense tens of millions of spirit crystals every day. This wealth was not worth mentioning for him. But even so, Elder Yi was still shocked by the speed at which Yi Shiwen absorbed the spirit crystals. Yi Shiwen had to consume millions of spirit crystals every day in order to digest all kinds of martial arts knowledge that Old Man Yi had explained. Moreover, he had to consume spirit crystals to practice all kinds of martial arts. So, Yi Shiwen had consumed tens of billions of spirit crystals in just 1 year. This speed was amazing. In the past, Yi Shiwen had to save and restrain himself when using the spirit crystals on him. He couldn't consume all the spirit crystals. But now it was different. With the law enforcement hall providing for his consumption, he could completely let go of his consumption. Not to mention all kinds of precious medicinal herbs and other heavenly treasures. The consumption of all these added up was unknown. However, what made Old Yi feel somewhat strange was that most people had a large demand for various kinds of medicinal herbs, dawn, and so on. However, Yi Shiwen's demand for these things wasn't very large. The real demand for spirit crystals was astonishing. Generally speaking, spirit crystals were used to speed up the cultivation. Although they could absorb the spiritual energy of the world, the spiritual energy of the world also contained a lot of other impurities. It was quite troublesome to filter them out. If spirit crystals were used for cultivation, the efficiency would increase by several times. But in any case, it was impossible to have such a huge demand. Fortunately, the law enforcement hall was able to supply such a huge demand for pure spiritual crystals. In addition, Yi Shiwen's biggest progress was in the sky-severing finger. He had completely practiced the sky-shaking technique and the sky-imprisoning technique to the great accomplishment. It had to be said that it was very difficult to practice the top-level heavenly martial arts. In this year, he had relied on the continuous supply of spirit crystals from the Yi family to practice these two techniques to the extreme. It was better to specialize in two of the techniques than to be weak. Previously, he had only practiced to the small accomplishment. The power difference between the small accomplishment and the great accomplishment was huge. In accordance with Elder Ye's guidance, Yi Shiwen forcibly suppressed his cultivation within this year. He didn't rush to make progress. Instead, he began to crazily make up for the missing parts. Although 1 year couldn't make up for all the missing parts, there was still a long way to go in the future. Finally, a year later, Elder Yi finally relented. Originally, I didn't want you to level up so quickly. It won't do you any good. The key is still the realm and comprehension. As long as you have the realm and comprehension, it won't be difficult to level up quickly. Our Yi family has such resources, Elder Yi said. In ancient times, when one hears the Tao in the morning, one can die in the evening and ascend to heaven in the day. But now, the 1-year rookie protection period has passed. Although your combat power has improved significantly, it is still impossible to defeat Yin Taiping, so you can break through first. Yi Shiwen's complexion was indifferent. He didn't feel any joy because he had been allowed to make a breakthrough. After all, this was a matter of course. Over the past year or so, his martial Dao realm had already improved tremendously, and his foundation was extremely solid. So, making another breakthrough was simply a normal thing. Therefore, he was not anxious at all. Yi Shiwen sat down cross-legged. Countless spirit crystals were ignited and melted into pure spirit energy. All of this energy was poured into his body. He didn't need to use the mysterious space this time. He could make a breakthrough by himself. The barrier of the 9th level of the law manifestation realm in his body was already on the verge of collapse after more than a year of cultivation. This time, it was just a matter of lifting a finger for him to break through again. In less than half a day, the qi and blood in Yi Shiwen's body that had climbed to the extreme suddenly rose again, like a blood dragon soaring into the sky. All kinds of visions in his body sounded at the same time. There was the sound of a phoenix, and the appearance of the divine tree. For a while, the light shone brightly. After a while, the visions all over his body were completely restrained. At this time, Yi Shiwen no longer looked like he had when he had just broken through. Instead, he looked like a master who had broken through the 9th level of the law manifestation realm for many years. He was calm and restrained, without the slightest edge. This was the advantage of having a high realm. Yi Shiwen's current realm had far surpassed the 9th level of the Transcendence realm. That was why this breakthrough seemed so easy. It was much easier than any of his previous breakthroughs. This also gave Yi Shiwen a deeper understanding of what the ancients had said about ascending to heaven. Indeed, as long as one's realm reached a certain level, accumulation was a very simple matter. Even if one didn't have the Yi family's resources, it would still be very simple to accumulate. Very good. You can restrain your aura so quickly. It shows that your learning during this period of time is good. Elder Yi also looked at Yi Shiwen with satisfaction. There was a look of appreciation in his eyes. For a person who was about to die, cultivating a hero for the Yi clan was also his last wish. Now, although Yi Shiwen had not broken through to the celestial realm, he seemed to be able to foresee it. This is all thanks to Elder Ye's guidance. This year has really been an eye-opener, Yi Shiwen said. In this year, you can only be considered to have completed the basic work of the learning stage. After that, what you have to do is to start to repair the hidden injuries in your body and repair your lifespan, said Elder Yi. And these are not within the scope of the free resources. You need to earn them yourself. Yi Shiwen nodded. Originally, Yi Shiwen had thought that Yin Taiping would come knocking on his door after a year. However, after waiting for a day, he discovered that Yin Taiping didn't come knocking on his door. He didn't think that Yin Taiping had found his conscience and decided to let him off. There must be some other reason. But for Yi Shiwen, this was not important. Since Yin Taiping did not come, Yi Shiwen did not bother to wait. There was no need to do so. Among the human secret realms, the 100th secret realm was located in the middle of the human secret realms. Compared to other secret realms, the 100th secret realm's biggest feature was that the planet supporting this secret realm was extremely huge. It was 100 times bigger than the planet under the ordinary secret realms. It looked very conspicuous. Such a huge planet could almost be compared to the planet under the Heaven's secret realm. Among these secret realms, the 100th secret realm's cultivation environment was not the best. Although the planet was countless times bigger, there were many indigenous people on this planet. There were intelligent races on this planet. It was not an ordinary planet where only ferocious beasts existed. Therefore, the arrays that were arranged to extract spiritual energy were often destroyed. Therefore, although the planet was huge, in terms of cultivation environment, this secret realm could only be ranked 100th. However, this mystic realm was one of the more famous mystic realms in the entire human character mystic realm because it was the location of a very famous trading center. It was said that this exchange was established by an extremely ancient master in the Heaven's secret realm. Many masters who had harvested or wanted to purchase some heavenly treasures could complete the transaction here. Additionally, as the planet beneath them was very big, the number of experts on it was extremely high. The aboriginals were not completely defenseless. Although they were incapable of breaking the magic arrays set up by the experts from the Yi family, it was still a very dangerous place for the experts within the human character pocket dimension. There were even sky-human stage experts there. After waiting for a day, Yi Shiwen went straight out of the Thousand Feather Secret Realm and came to the 100th Secret Realm. This time, he came out to buy some heavenly treasures that could prolong one's life. When the time came, he would refine them into medicinal pellets. For those warriors who had reached the end of their normal lifespan, it was useless to prolong their life. Their potential had reached its limit. However, for Yi Shiwen, it was just right. He could make up for the lost vitality. The entire 100th Secret Realms exchange was very lively. Although there were only a few masters in the Secret Realm, many people brought a lot of people with them when they came in. Therefore, this Secret Realm for cultivation looked more like a small world. Especially this exchange, it was very lively. There were a lot of people going in and out almost all the time. With the strength and status of these elites, ordinary resources wouldn't be able to attract their attention. Only those rare resources were truly scarce. And these were the things traded in this exchange. Moreover, this exchange seemed to be a bit semi-official. In addition to the things sold by the various geniuses, there were also all the things that the Yi family could provide to these geniuses. However, the difference was that these things could be exchanged with points. Therefore, a group of geniuses was also used to buying or exchanging various resources and heavenly treasures they needed here. Yi Shiwen didn't stand out at all among the bustling voices. Although he had been high profile when he entered Secret Realm number 1, there were still very few people who had actually seen him. Most people might have heard of his name, but there were very few people who had actually seen him. Outside the exchange center, there were also many martial artists setting up stalls. The exchange center didn't care about this. These were all individual investors and couldn't affect the overall situation of the exchange center. Most importantly, everything that happened outside the exchange center wasn't under the control of the exchange center. Whether someone was cheated or cheated, the exchange center wouldn't meddle in other people's business. Therefore, this black market was somewhat chaotic and mixed with crooks and honest folk. Therefore, when many people bought, they would choose to enter the exchange to trade for safety. In this way, if something really happened, they could also claim compensation. As Yi Shiwen just entered the exchange, he saw the eyes of a woman who was originally at the front desk lit up. She directly shook off the people in front of her and walked towards Yi Shiwen. Chapter 1338. You are Yi Shiwen? A slightly hoarse and somewhat magnetic voice came out of the woman's mouth. Yi Shiwen looked up and saw that it was a young woman. This woman was wearing a fiery red long skirt. It was quite tight and outlined her beautiful figure. In addition, she had a delicate face and a pair of peach blossom eyes. She looked quite charming. Well, you are? Yi Shiwen felt a little strange. He had never seen this woman before, but this woman actually knew him. Sure enough, I said I'm not that old yet. This young woman covered her small mouth and laughed. She was completely familiar with him, without the slightest estrangement. Let me introduce myself. My name is Yi Yuing. I am the manager of this exchange. Hello, bud. Am I so famous in the first secret territory? Yi Shiwen felt a little strange. He glanced at this young woman Yi Yuing. Looking at her restrained breath, she was probably already at the peak of the late stage of half-step celestial realm. Although she hid it very well, but Yi Shiwen still saw some clues. She was not a simple person, not to mention that she could be the manager of this exchange. Of course, you should not underestimate your current reputation. TSK, not everyone has the determination to dare to refuse Yin Taiping. That young woman Yi Yuing had an expression of course. She seemed to be rebuking Yi Shiwen for not believing her words. Yi Shiwen was silent. Perhaps many people did not know him, but in the eyes of those who were observant, some of his things were not considered secrets. You are a man who can defeat the Son of God, you can't be so lacking in confidence. Yi Yuing laughed and said. Yi Shiwen also had to admit that although he was not familiar with Yi Yuing, these few words of hers were like old friends, making him feel like he was bathed in the spring wind. He immediately made a judgment in his heart. This Yi Yuing was a person with money and power, completely different from Yi Qianqian's cold type. What, are you also here to buy things? Yi Yuing glanced at Yi Shiwen and said. Yi Shiwen was about to answer when he heard a burst of hurried footsteps, followed by a few figures arriving behind them. Lady Yuing, that's not right, isn't it? You're teasing us over there. At this moment, a clear voice could be heard. Yi Shiwen looked over and saw a group of 3 people. There were 2 men and 1 woman. The woman seemed to be in her 20s. She was dressed in a luxurious robe. There was a somewhat arrogant look on her face. It was obvious that she had an extraordinary background. As for the other 2 men, one of them had the appearance of a young man with a pale face and no facial hair. He was very handsome and had an extraordinary bearing. The other man looked to be around 28 or 29 years old, and was also dressed in an embroidered jade robe. The one who spoke was the handsome, fair-skinned, beardless young man. When the young man spoke, he looked at Yi Shiwen and seemed a little confused. Why did Yi Yuing leave them behind and come to see a kid at the 9th level of the Transcendence realm? There was even a hint of warning in his eyes, telling Yi Shiwen to get lost if he knew what was good for him. He didn't take Yi Shiwen seriously at all. That's right. It's all my fault. Yi Yuing held her forehead and said with a smile. I forgot about the proper business. Yi Shiwen, let me introduce you. These 3 are our distinguished guests of the exchange. This is Yin Taiyang, young Master Yin, Lin Song, young Master Lin, and Yi Yumei, Miss Yi of the Yi family. Yin Taiyang and the other 2 were obviously unhappy because Yi Yuing introduced them to Yi Shiwen. Don't look at the order of the introduction. In fact, it showed the difference in status between the 2 sides. Yi Yuing's introduction actually implied that their status and identity were not as good as this kid in front of them. With their pride, if it wasn't for Yi Yuing, how could they swallow this insult? Yi Shiwen saw that the cultivation of these 3 had reached the late stage of the celestial realm, but it was obviously a lot worse than Yi Yuing's hidden cultivation. The name of the fair-skinned young man caught his attention. Yin Taiyang, what was the relationship between Yin Taiping and Yin Taiyang? The Yin family was a very close affiliate of the Yi family. There were many people who came in to cultivate, but this Yin Taiyang and Yin Taiping's names were so similar. Obviously, they should be of the same generation. And this person, I think you must have heard of him during this time. This is the latest owner of the human #1 secret realm, Yi Shiwen, young Master Yi. Yi Yuing introduced Yi Shiwen to the 3. Originally, they all had a little unhappy on their faces, but at this time, it all disappeared, and they were a little surprised. He is Yi Shiwen? The rumors about Yi Shiwen had spread throughout the entire human secret realm for more than a year. Originally, as the owner of the human #1 secret realm, he was already the focus of everyone's attention. What's more, he made Yin Taiping suffer a little a year ago, which was enough to attract countless people's attention. It was just that they had only heard of him for a long time, but had never seen him in person. But when they saw Yi Shiwen's cultivation, they suddenly felt a sense of disappointment. You are Yi Shiwen? Yin Taiyang saw Yi Shiwen, took a step forward, and said with a condescending look. Why, what advice do you have for me? Yi Shiwen said coldly. Yi Yuing saw that both sides were at daggers drawn, but she did not stop them. On the contrary, a playful smile flashed across the corner of her mouth. I have heard of you. You seem to have made Yin Taiping suffer a little. Yin Taiyang asked. So what if I did? Yi Shiwen said. You don't have to be nervous. He and I can only be regarded as competitors. I don't want to seek justice for him, Yin Taiyang said. When Yi Shiwen heard this, his expression did not change at all, because he did not like Yin Taiyang's condescending look. That kind of arrogant expression, did he really think that he was some big shot? But I know him very well. He will seek revenge for the smallest grievance. You embarrassed him a year ago, so he will never let you go. Yin Taiyang saw that Yi Shiwen's face did not show the expression he wanted, but he was not too disappointed. He continued, "With your cultivation, you are definitely not his opponent, but I can protect you. As long as you hand over the number 1 secret realm and submit to me, I can help you fight against him. At that time, with my support, he will definitely not dare to do anything to you." Yi Shiwen was stunned. He thought about the possible excuses that Yin Taiyang might have, but he did not expect that it was to subdue him as a subordinate. He suddenly could not help but feel a little dumbfounded. Yin Taiping was not the only one who was eyeing Yi Shiwen's number 1 secret realm. It was just that Yin Taiping was strong and took action first. Yi Shiwen did not expect that Yin Taiyang was also one of them. Yin Taiyang said these words with an expression of "You have taken a big advantage of me." Yi Weiying, on the other hand, looked at Yi Shiwen and Yin Taiyang with a pondering look on her face. She didn't know how Yi Shiwen would answer. "You don't have to worry about it." Yi Shiwen directly refused. As he spoke, he was about to go inside the exchange. It was ridiculous that he actually wasted time because of these people. Faintly, he was also a little dissatisfied with Yi Weiying. She knew the relationship between Yin Taiyang and Yin Taiping. No matter how hostile the two of them were, they were still from the same clan. What was her intention to introduce him at this time? She had caused countless troubles. "What do you mean?" Yin Taiyang's face immediately fell, and he said with an ugly expression. He was originally very unhappy with Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was just a kid at the 9th level of the law manifestation realm, and he actually dared to put on airs in front of him. If it was not to leave a good impression in front of Yi Weiying, he would have already slapped this arrogant kid to death. Now, he actually dared to refuse his good intentions. He was really tired of living. "Haven't I said it clearly enough? I'm not even afraid of Yin Taiping, let alone you," Yi Shiwen said with a sneer. "Bastard." Yin Taiyang suddenly became furious. He had always regarded himself as Yin Taiping's competitor. How could he tolerate such insulting words? Didn't he say that he was inferior to Yin Taiping? This was really intolerable. Although the Yin clan was not as powerful as the Yi clan, there were also countless masters in the clan. The younger generation was also full of masters. The competition here was no worse than the internal competition of the Yi clan. "Miss Yuing, I originally didn't want to use violence in this exchange, but this man is so arrogant, then don't blame me." Yin Taiyang suppressed his anger and said to Yi Weiying. Before Yi Weiying had time to react, Yin Taiyang had already exposed himself. A big hand instantly grabbed towards Yi Shiwen's shoulder. "Pa!" Yin Taiyang grabbed Yi Shiwen's shoulder, and his face immediately showed a somewhat ferocious expression. He said coldly, "Kid, for the sake of Miss Yuing, I'll give you another chance. Hand over the number 1 secret realm, submit to me obediently, and be my slave. Then I'll let you go. Otherwise, you will suffer. Be my slave? You think you're worthy? I think your Yin clan has been too arrogant these years. You're just a disciple of an affiliated clan of our Yi clan. You actually dare to ask me, an authentic disciple of the Yi clan, to be your slave?" Yi Shiwen's face showed a somewhat sarcastic expression. He didn't seem to care about the big hand on his shoulder at all. "Did you take the wrong medicine?" Yin Taiyang's face turned green and white. Yi Shiwen poked his weak point. Indeed, no matter how outstanding he was more outstanding than many disciples of the Yi clan. However, he was not a disciple of the Yi clan. Although the Yi clan was generous in training the outstanding disciples of other affiliated clans, they were also the most outstanding people like Yin Taiping. After all, there was still some gap in the treatment of these people. Thinking of this, Yin Taiyang was anxious. He suddenly became ruthless. His big hand instantly exerted force, and instantly grabbed Yi Shiwen's shoulder. Chapter 1339. Creak, creak! There was a sound of metal rubbing against each other. It was completely different from what Yin Taiyang thought. Yi Shiwen's shoulder was not scratched by Yin Taiyang at all. Instead, It was as if nothing had happened. Is that all? Compared to Yin Taiping, you are far worse. Yishuan sneered, and then his qi and blood suddenly shook off Yin Taiyang's palm. Thump, thump, thump! Yin Taiyang was directly shaken back a few steps before he stopped. There was a look of shock on his face. I can't believe it! How could this be? On the side, Yi Weiying's eyes were also full of brilliance. No one knew what she was thinking. Soon, the conflict between Yin Taiyang and Yishuan attracted the attention of many people in the exchange. Isn't that Yin Taiyang? Didn't he just come back from the planet below? I heard that he had a good harvest. Why did he have a conflict with someone? What's so strange about this? Yin Taiyang is arrogant and unruly. He always compares himself with Yin Taiping. How many people have had conflicts with him, but no one has been able to do anything to him. But who is this person? He can actually shake off Yin Taiyang. He has some skills. The surrounding people were talking about it and began to guess Yishuan's identity. But no one recognized Yishuan. This was also thanks to Yishuan's low-key and reclusive behavior for more than a year. You're courting death. At this time, Yin Taiyang was completely enraged by Yishuan. Even if you are a child of Yi clan, you can forget about protecting you at this time. Although I can't kill you in the secret territory, I can abolish your martial arts and make you a disabled person forever. Let's see if you can still be arrogant then. He took a step forward, and the aura on his body suddenly rose a lot, like a mountain, crushing towards Yishuan. The terrifying strength of half-step celestial realm was completely revealed. He had only taken one step, but he had already felt a mountain-like pressure crushing down on him. In fact, it seemed as if he would be crushed to pieces. Yishuan's expression did not change at all. Just a small trick. Originally, Yishuan wasn't afraid of the coercion of this kind of imposing aura. He had the protection of divinity. At this time, this kind of coercion of this imposing aura was nothing to him. He also took a step forward. Suddenly, the imposing aura that was pressing down on him was cut apart by a sharp blade. There was no obstruction at all. It disappeared without a trace in an instant. Many people in the surroundings revealed a somewhat startled look. Yin Taiyang was arrogant and despotic. However, his strength was solid. However, Yishuan had broken through his defense so easily. Yishuan wasn't an ordinary person. You just said that you want me to be your slave. I didn't care. I just wanted to punish you a little to warn you. I didn't expect you to be so arrogant, actually saying that you want to abolish my martial arts. Then don't blame me for being rude. Yishuan sneered. Arrogant. Although Yin Taiyang was surprised that Yishuan easily broke through his crushing imposing aura, he was immediately overwhelmed by his anger towards Yishuan. At his level, with such cultivation, how could he not care about his own face? This was a slap in the face by Yishuan. How could he tolerate it? He instantly grabbed with his big hand, and the mighty qi instantly burst out. This exchange was originally not big, but at this time, it was instantly filled. There were many people who didn't pay attention to the situation here. All of a sudden, they looked over here. Who was so bold and dared to make a move in the exchange? When they saw that the person who made a move was Yin Taiyang, they were relieved. Yin Taiyang's relief was real in the hearts of the people in this exchange. Those warriors who were close to him retreated one after another. This is the Yin family's secret technique, mixed element broken jade technique. Many people's faces changed drastically. His big hand instantly grabbed towards Yishuan, and it seemed that Yishuan was about to be grabbed to death. But at this time, Yishuan directly made a move. He didn't make any fancy movements, but he directly pointed with his finger. This finger seemed to have stopped time, and the whole world disappeared. Only his finger existed forever. It seemed slow but was actually fast. It looked like it was still shuttling in the void, but in fact, in an instant, it had already pointed at that big hand like a spark. Time seemed to have slowed down under this finger. Kacha. There wasn't a fierce collision like everyone thought. The only thing that could be heard was a crisp cracking sound, like the sound of glass breaking. That big hand began to crack on the spot. With Yishuan's finger as the core, it began to completely crack in all directions. Bang! Then there was another explosion. That big hand completely exploded in the air and turned into a mass of spiritual energy. At this time, Yin Taiyang also screamed and covered his hand. His right hand was completely blown up and dripping with blood. Yishuan's finger could break the void and break through the fabrications. The power of this finger was amazing. He had already practiced this finger shaking the sky to the great accomplishment, and this was the first time he used it after practicing it to the great accomplishment, and the first victim was Yin Taiyang. While everyone was immersed in this finger, Yishuan had already directly made a move. This time, it was his turn to make a move. The whole process of the switch was not abrupt at all. Seeing the power of that finger, everyone was not optimistic about Yin Taiyang at all. Little thief, stop. But at this time, Lin Song and Yi Yumei, who were next to Yin Taiyang, made a move. The three of them were originally a small team, especially when they were exploring the planet below. At this time, they almost instinctively attacked Yishuan. They didn't give him any chance at all. The aura of the two suddenly skyrocketed. From the beginning, they were harmless to humans and animals, and suddenly broke out with the strength of half-step celestial realm late stage. As Yin Taiyang's teammate, their strength was not much worse. The attacks of the two turned into two martial arts torrents, fiercely blasting towards Yishuan, and they did not hold back at all. Get out of my way! Yishuan shouted, and above his hands, countless divinities automatically gathered, condensing into two golden shields in an instant. Boom! The two martial arts torrents fiercely hit the two golden shields, like a torrent crashing down in an instant. But they could not shake the golden shields composed of divinities at all. No one can stop me! Yishuan directly jumped in front of Yin Taiyang in one breath, and both Yi Yumei and Lin Song could not stop Yishuan's advance. Mr. Yi, please show mercy. For the sake of our exchange, please show mercy. At this time, Yi Weiying's voice suddenly sounded. This made Yishuan surprised. This woman was definitely not simple, she could actually keep up with his speed. But he was still not happy in his heart. Why did this woman not stop Yin Taiyang just now, but now she knew to stop him? Too late. Yishuan sneered, and did not stop at all. Countless flames began to condense in his hands, and immediately transformed into a flaming saber. The whole process did not have the slightest pause, and directly chopped down from the sky. Yin Taiyang did not expect Yishuan to be so fierce that even his two teammates could not stop Yishuan. At this time, he could only roughly arrange a few barriers in front of him. Dang! There was a loud sound of metal colliding, and Yishuan's sharp blade broke through a few barriers in succession. Bang! Yishuan's flaming saber fiercely chopped on Yin Taiyang's chest, directly cutting out countless flowers of blood, and instantly annihilated by the flames. Yin Taiyang's whole body was directly blasted out on the spot, like a kite with a broken string, flying upside down on the spot, slamming into the wall of the exchange, and rolling down. Silence! There was a dead silence on the scene. Everyone was dumbfounded as they looked at Yin Taiyang, who was sent flying by Yishuan's saber, with flesh and blood flying everywhere. There was a hideous wound on his whole chest, and his whole body was almost cut open. This is impossible. Who is this person? How can he be so ferocious? Ferocious, it's really too ferocious. Yin Taiyang is not his opponent at all, he can't even block one saber of his. When did our number one secret realm have such a ferocious person? I have never heard of him. I recognize him, he is Yishuan who entered the number one secret realm a year ago. Someone recognized Yishuan's origin. No way, I heard that he only has the strength of the 8th level of the law manifestation realm, but he only made Yin Taiping suffer a little with the help of the array? How can he be so ferocious? Rumors can't be trusted, rumors can't be trusted. With the combat power he showed, I'm afraid it is far more than that. This is going to be interesting. I thought there was no suspense between him and Yin Taiping, and he would definitely leave after a year. I didn't expect that there would be a twist. Yi Weiing on the side also looked at Yi Shiwen. Her eyes were full of brilliance. Yin Taiyang on the side almost fainted directly. He was defeated by Yi Shiwen's saber and was seriously injured. It was simply a kind of humiliation for him, and he even wanted to faint directly. Puff! After hearing everyone's evaluation, he was angry and anxious, and vomited a mouthful of blood on the spot. From what these people said, they were comparing Yi Shiwen and Yin Taiping. Did it mean that he had nothing to do with it? How could he, who had always boasted that he could be compared with Yin Taiping, accept such a big blow? He vomited a mouthful of blood on the spot, and then directly fainted. Now that things had come to this, he really had no face to see anyone. When Yi Yumei and Lin Song saw that Yin Taiyang directly fainted, they could not care about the battle with Yi Shiwen at this time. They quickly took Yin Taiyang and left dejectedly without looking back. They did not dare to look at Yi Shiwen at all. Fortunately, Yi Shiwen did not intend to stop them at all, so they left easily. Yi Shiwen, you really live up to your reputation. At this time, Yi Weiying's slightly hoarse voice sounded again. Chapter 1340. Yi Shiwen, you really live up to your reputation. At this time, Yi Weiying's slightly hoarse voice once again appeared. Facing Yi Weiying, Yi Shiwen bluntly said. He did not have a good impression of this woman, although he did not know what her purpose was, but the matter with Yin Taiyang a moment ago was somewhat instigated by her. Although she did not instigate, but with her ability to manipulate others, she could have handled it well. But she just stood by and watched. It could be seen that she was somewhat conniving. Although he did not know what her intention was, but how could Yi Shiwen give her a good look? Yi Weiying saw that Yi Shiwen's complexion was not good, she was exceptionally intelligent, and almost immediately thought of the reason. She could not help but smile somewhat bitterly. It seemed that this time, she had gone a bit too far. She just wanted to test Yi Shiwen's strength, but did not think that it would turn out like this. Sorry, I also did not think that things would turn out like this, Yi Weiying said apologetically. It doesn't matter, I just came to buy things, that's all. After buying, I will leave, Yi Shiwen said indifferently. Then let me be the shopping guide. I don't know what kind of things you want to buy. We have an official cooperation with Yi family. Not only can you buy things from our exchange, but you can also use points to exchange for Yi family's treasures, Yi Weiying said. Relatively speaking, Yi family's treasures were more difficult to exchange, because Yi family only accepted points, and points could only be exchanged for Yi family's various merits, unlike the exchange, where as long as one had enough lingqi, one could buy as many things as one wanted. This time, Yi Shiwen did not refuse, and let Yi Weiying lead the way. Under the guidance of Yi Weiying, Yi Shiwen directly entered the second floor of the exchange. Compared to the slightly chaotic situation on the first floor, the second floor was obviously much quieter, and only distinguished guests could enter. The decoration was slightly old-fashioned, perhaps because it had been established for a long time. The style was slightly different from now. But no one cared, because no one came here to enjoy. Yi Shiwen did not say much to Yi Weiying, and directly took out a list, which listed all kinds of heavenly treasures needed for refining immortality pills. Yi Weiying took a look. Most of them were heavenly treasures that could prolong one's lifespan. This kind of divine item had always been in high demand, because no one didn't want to prolong one's lifespan. Although these divine items didn't seem to be the best and their lifespan could not be extended for a long time, they were very expensive. Most people would only buy 1 or 2 items at most. It was very rare to see someone buy so many items at once. Moreover, the main point was, why did Yi Shiwen buy so many items? Yi Shiwen was still young. He was merely a few hundred years old. Wouldn't he have to wait for at least a few thousand years before he could use these things? She was a little suspicious in her heart. Could it be because of the old man beside him? At this time, she remembered that there was an old man beside him. This old man seemed to be quite strong, but it was said that he was surrounded by a deathly aura. Anyone could tell that he was about to die. The David Decay 5 had already descended, and it looked like there was no hope. But even so, there was only a slight hesitation on her face, and she said, "No problem, you wait a moment, I will help you ask." She was well aware that she had already aroused Yi Shiwen's displeasure. If she continued to inquire about this issue, it would certainly arouse Yi Shiwen's vigilance. When that time came, it would not be good. Opening the door to do business, it was nothing more than for the sake of harmony and wealth. Although she had the intention of testing him, she absolutely did not have the intention of falling out with him. Soon Yi Weiing once again returned and said, "Yi Shiwen, we have all the other heavenly treasures on your list, but we don't have this dustless sweet dew grass." Yi Shiwen couldn't help but frown when he heard this. This dustless sweet dew grass wasn't a medicinal ingredient that could prolong one's lifespan. However, it was one of the most important medicinal ingredients in Yao Lao's alchemy this time. There wasn't even a substitute for it. Yi Shiwen's plan to repair the hidden injuries in his body would have to be delayed if he didn't have it. Although he looked less than 200 years old, in fact, many years of battles, and the use of phoenix regeneration technique many times, had actually overdrawn a lot of his lifespan. This time, he would make up for it all at once, so that his body would return to its peak state, and the true peak state, without any hidden dangers. At that time, he would try to break into the Deva realm in a perfect state. This was also very important for him to step into the heaven tier in the future. For any warrior, the heaven tier was a huge threshold. Once crossed, they would soar into the sky and become a dragon. But if they could not cross, they would be stuck in this awkward realm for all eternity. He had been preparing to break into the Deva realm since a long time ago, whether it was the 9 Revolutions Supreme Mystery Golden Dan, or the Desolate Blood Sacred Fruit, or other things, it was all to ensure that he could successfully break into the Deva realm in one go. Even if he had the mysterious space and Yimo's help, he did not have much confidence in breaking into the Deva realm. How many heroes were stuck at this point? At this time, the dustless sweet dew grass was gone. How could he calm down? "Even the family doesn't have it?" Yi Shiwen asked. If the family had it, no matter how many points it required, he would exchange it for it. "There is no more." Although this dustless sweet dew grass is not too strong, it is also the main medicinal guide of a variety of medicinal pellets. Generally, it will not appear for long before it will be bought by others. "How about this? We will help you pay attention." Yi Weiing tried to show her kindness and said, "Generally, how long will it take for the dustless sweet dew grass to appear?" Yi Shiwen asked. "This is hard to say, it may appear in a few days, it may also appear in a few decades," Yi Weiing said. Yi Shiwen could not help but be a little disappointed when he heard this. If this was the case, then it would be troublesome. This kind of heavenly treasure itself was not like spirit crystals and the like, it could only be encountered and not sought. Therefore, although Yi Shiwen consumed spirit crystals extremely quickly and was never stingy, he still valued heavenly treasures very much. Basically, he would rarely sell this kind of heavenly treasures. Although he might not need it now, if he really needed it one day, then it would be too late to look for it. "Do you still want the other divine items on this list?" Yi Weiing asked. "Yes, help me collect all of them." Yi Shiwen continued. "That's good, but these will cost more than 50 billion spirit crystals. I will give you a discount, it will still cost 50 billion spirit crystals," Yi Weiing said. Yi Shiwen secretly thought that this price was similar to the price he had already heard before coming here. He was not a fool, how could he let others take advantage of him? Yi Weiing really did not lie to him, his impression of her in his heart was a little better. "But before that, I want to sell some divine items, can you help me appraise them?" Yi Shiwen did not have any spirit crystals on him, they had long been consumed. At this time, he could only sell those divine items. Fortunately, he had obtained hundreds of divine items in the treasure house before, he was least lacking these priceless divine items. He took out 10 divine items in one breath, among which there were Tai gold and so on, each of them was expensive. Yi Weiing also looked at Yi Shiwen with some surprise. Some time ago, there were rumors that Yi Shiwen had a great harvest in the treasure house, even causing a war. It seemed that the rumors were not false. It was not ordinary to be able to take out 10 divine items in one breath. She did not doubt Yi Shiwen's ability to pay, because a person like Yi Shiwen would not be so stupid to come and play with them, but she did not expect that Yi Shiwen would actually take out divine items to pay off the debt. It seemed that this should be far from the limit, there should be a lot more. Well, each of these 10 divine items is a rare divine item. I will make the decision this time, 60 billion spirit crystals, excluding the medicinal herbs on your purchase list, there will be an extra 10 billion, how about it? Yi Weiying pondered for a moment, and said in a heroic manner. Yi Shiwen nodded. This price was about right, slightly higher than what he had expected. Don't look down on it, it was just a little, but it was hundreds of millions of spirit crystals. In other words, Yi Weiying had gifted him hundreds of millions of spirit crystals, more than 1 billion spirit crystals, in addition to the small change she had erased when buying medicinal herbs before. This woman was really heroic. The dissatisfaction in her heart had also been reduced a lot. This Yi Weiying really knew how to conduct herself. Seeing that the unhappiness on Yi Shiwen's face had also been reduced a lot, Yi Weiying's face finally revealed a little smile. Suddenly, she seemed to think of something, and said, "Actually, we had dustless sweet du grass for sale, but it was just bought 2 days ago. If you go and ask now, maybe you will have a chance." Yi Weiying's words made Yi Shiwen's eyes immediately lit up. "Who is it?" Yi Shiwen immediately asked. "It is the owner of the number 5 secret realm, Yi Shan," Yi Weiying said. "Yi Shan?" Yi Shiwen suddenly thought of Yi Shan. This more than a year's time was enough for him to have some understanding of the human secret realm. In the human secret realm, the top 10 in the human secret realm were all special existences. In fact, not only in the human secret realm, but also in the earth secret realm, the top 10 in the heaven secret realm, and could even be said to be the rulers of the 3 big secret realms. In the human secret realm, the top 10 were also the most tyrannical masters, and Yi Shan was the owner of the number 5 secret realm, the master of the Wanshan realm. Moreover, in these 10 secret realms, only 2 were women, and Yi Shan was one of them. It could be said that she had a lot of supporters, almost all over the first secret realm. Even among the heaven realm masters there was no lack of suitors. It could be seen how influential she was. "So it is her," Yi Shiwen said. Chapter 1341. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but have a headache. "Anyway, I still have to thank you this time," Yi Shiwen said. He had always been clear about gratitude and grudges. Although Yi Weiying's previous probing action made him feel dissatisfied, but the information she provided was equivalent to a great help to Yi Shiwen. Although the hope was not very big, it was better than wandering around like a headless fly. If not for this information, he might have issued a mission to find dustless sweet grass, even if the price was a little expensive. But even so, it was still like looking for a needle in a haystack. "It's just a small effort. If there is anything you need in the future, you can still contact us," Yi Weiying said with a slight smile, knowing that the grudge between Yi Shiwen and her mood was much better. "In that case, I will leave." Yi Shiwen did not want to delay for even a minute and directly said goodbye. "You can send those things to the number 1 secret territory later." This made Yi Weiying somewhat surprised. This Yi Shiwen was really unromantic. Even those heaven's favored ones, who had their eyes on the top of their heads, would try their best to get along with her. However, this Yi Shiwen was an exception. Moreover, if it wasn't for her continuous preferential treatment, he might not have given her any face at all. This was very special. But at this time, what else could she say? After Yi Shiwen said goodbye to Yi Weiying, he quickly went down to the second floor of the exchange. At this time, the entire first floor was still in a heated discussion, especially when they saw Yi Shiwen. When he came down, it caused a commotion, especially since Yi Shiwen's identity had now been widely spread. The mysterious master of the number 1 secret territory only showed his face when he first moved in. After that, he completely appeared and disappeared like a ghost, which stimulated countless experts to become even more interested in Yi Shiwen. In particular, the grudge between him and Yin Taiping was a topic that everyone was talking about. Yi Shiwen ignored them and walked straight out of the exchange. Yi Shiwen! When he just stepped out of the exchange, he heard a cold shout coming from afar, followed by a figure quickly rushing over. It was Yin Taiping. At this time, Yin Taiping was wearing an iron robe, holding an iron spear, and riding a majestic exotic beast that was constantly roaring towards the sky. There was even fresh blood flowing on his iron robe. It was obvious that he had just returned from an expedition. He looked like a god of war who had conquered the world. "I'm here, hurry up and accept your death!" As he spoke, the entire space began to tremble violently, as if it was about to collapse. "Yin Taiping! It's him! Did he just return from a battle? This day has finally come!" Countless experts in the exchange were discussing spiritedly. They had thoroughly understood what kind of person Yi Shiwen was just now. In particular, the matter between him and Yin Taiping was the object of everyone's discussion. Now that 1 year had passed, it was time for them to fulfill their promise to each other. And at this moment, Yin Taiping actually stepped on the air and came over. Yi Shiwen's figure floated in the air without any stage fright. One was the champion of this year's clans competition, who had once defeated the god's child. 1 year ago, he had made a stunning move and caused Yin Taiping to suffer a little. Just now, he had even seriously injured Yin Taiyang with a single slash. And on the other side, there was a terrifying expert who was famous in the entire human secret realm. He occupied the human secret realm number 10. In the human secret realm, he was undoubtedly the focus of everyone's attention. Now that the two of them were finally going to fight, everyone was thoroughly excited. They had truly witnessed Yi Shiwen's strength that severely injured Yin Taiyang with a single blade strike. This made them look forward to this battle instead of expecting it to be a one-sided situation. Yin Taiping's long spear pointed in the air, as if it was going to shatter the sky. It was extremely terrifying, like the god of war had returned. The iron robe on his body was stained with blood. The murderous aura on his body was unknown how many powerful enemies he had just killed. That long spear was ancient and mysterious, giving people an illusion of fear. And everyone in the exchange could feel the terrifying murderous aura emerging from Yin Taiping's body. They could not help but tremble a little. How strong is Yin Taiping? How can he be so terrifying? Even though many of the people present were also at the level of half-step celestial realm, but when facing the aura of Yin Taiping's body, they were still extremely terrified. They were in the same realm, but it seemed like there was a natural chasm between them. They were not people of the same world. The aura of Yin Taiping's body was getting more and more tyrannical. The aura of his body was rising. Just one person and one horse seemed to have completely suppressed the entire void. Randan was terrified. Many people were glad that they were now hiding in the exchange. There was a matrix to block Yin Taiping's aura. Otherwise, they might have been suppressed to the point of vomiting blood. Yin Taiping seemed to have just experienced a battle. His murderous aura had not faded. It was incomparably cold, colder than the cold universe. Everyone was terrified. They had been affected to such an extent even though they were so far away. Most importantly, Yin Taiping's killing intention was clearly directed towards Yi Shiwen. They had only felt the aftermath of his attack. That was all. But it was already so terrifying. So, it was simply unimaginable how terrifying he would be when he was truly enraged. And under the suppression of Yin Taiping's aura, Yi Shiwen finally had a counterattack. He stood with his hands behind his back, and walked out in the void step by step. Every time he took a step, the formidable imposing aura exuding from Yin Taiping's body would dissolve a little bit, and Yi Shiwen's imposing aura would become even more tyrannical. His blood and chi were boiling, just like a burning flame, and the golden rays of light had covered half of the sky. Yi Shiwen and Yin Taiping had unexpectedly formed a formidable confrontation, and there was no sign of them falling into a disadvantageous position. And in the exchange, the battle between the two masters did not make Yi Yueying moved in the slightest. She just stared at Yi Shiwen. Just now, Yin Taiyang's strength was too weak, and his power made you reveal your true colors. Then what about this Yin Taiping? How strong is he, how strong? She muttered to herself. Yi Shiwen, I have heard about what happened just now, Yin Taiping said lightly. He was as condescending as Yin Taiyang, like a master facing a slave. I heard that he was defeated by you. Yin Taiping's expression was indifferent, as if he was talking about something that had nothing to do with him. This guy is always on the same level as me, he really overestimates himself, Yin Taiping said to himself. Obviously, Yin Taiyang was not pleasing to his eyes, but he did not care about Yin Taiyang. Although they were both masters of the Yi family, and had seen Yin Taiyang defeated, there was not the slightest change. It's been a year. TSK, I didn't expect you to be so eager to come out of your tortoise shell. Yin Taiping smiled. His smile was a bit cold, as if it was a voice from hell. I thought you didn't dare to come out. Yin Taiping continued to say. Who do you think you are? I don't dare to come out. Ridiculous. Yi Shiwen sneered and said. I can easily crush you in the same realm. Yin Taiping's expression was as cold as water. He didn't have the smile of a moment ago, but it had become even colder. Both of them were in confrontation, but Yi Shiwen's words made his complexion turn ugly. It was true that his current realm was much higher than Yi Shiwen's. It was just that no one had mentioned this before. Yi Shiwen's own strength had also made many people ignore this point. Now Yi Shiwen had mentioned it again. After being said in such a way, Yin Taiping felt like he was bullying the younger generation. Do you think you can squeeze me with this sentence? Yin Taiping suddenly laughed, as if he had seen something particularly ridiculous. Squeeze? Is there a need for that? I've never been afraid of you. Yi Shiwen smiled faintly. Many people were slightly shocked in their hearts. Yi Shiwen's confidence had completely infected them. Facing Yin Taiping, how many people in the entire human secret realm would dare to say that they had never been afraid of him? I'm just telling you the truth. You can't do anything to me even now. Not to mention, I'll wait until I reach a higher level of enlightenment. Then, I'll be able to take your head in the outside world with ease. Yi Shiwen indifferently said. Take my head? Let's see if you have the ability to do so. Yin Taiping restrained his smile. It seemed that Yi Shiwen's words had somewhat stung him. Then, he laughed wildly, incomparably coldly. The strange beast he was riding on began to roar towards the sky, shaking all directions. It was also a strange beast with a noble bloodline. Cut the crap, let's do it, Yi Shiwen said coldly. Yin Taiping did not speak, but only confirmed Yi Shiwen's words with his actions. With a violent roar, the strange beast he was riding on began to rush towards Yi Shiwen. One man and one horse, but they ran with the momentum of a magnificent army. Looking from afar, it was really frightening. But at this time, Yi Shiwen's blood and qi also began to surge. He didn't hold back and spread out his palm. Countless pores on his body spurted out sword intention and condensed into an iron sword in his palm. Then, the sword intention flew across the vast sky. Facing Yin Taiping's sudden attack of a long spear, and a sharp sound of breaking through the void shattered, a spear was pointed towards Yi Shiwen. Clang! This was a confrontation between an iron spear and an iron sword in the sky. Dang! Another sound of metal clashing rang out. Boom! The aftermath of the confrontation between the two spread out in an instant, like a raging tide of energy, crazily sweeping in all directions. The spiritual energy scattered in all directions, scattered and violent, blocking everyone's vision. Who won and who lost? Everyone had the same doubts in their hearts. The confrontation just now was too violent, no one really saw what exactly happened. Chapter 1342. How is the fight going? Who won and who lost? Countless people were talking about it. At this time, the spiritual chi finally calmed down, and the crowd finally saw the scene. The two were in a stalemate in the air. Yi Shiwen's long sword blocked Yin Taiping's long spear on his forehead at the moment of imminent peril. He had completely blocked Yin Taiping's peerless attack. This attack didn't move him in the slightest. But the crowd had their own judgment about who was stronger between the two sides. Although it seems that they are equally matched, but considering that Yin Taiping has borrowed the power of his mount, even so, he still can't do anything to Yi Shiwen. Is Yi Shiwen really a monster in human skin? Otherwise, how can he have such terrifying power? That's right. He can compete with Yin Taiping now. If Yi Shiwen can be at the same realm as Yin Taiping in the future, I am afraid that he can really treat Yin Taiping like grass. Crack, crack. There was a burst of shattering sound, and the void under their feet was shattered. Countless spiritual chi collapsed on the spot. Everyone was incomparably shocked. Their attacks and power had not been able to affect each other. They had all been diverted to their feet. Just how terrifying this power was could be seen from the collapse of the void under their feet. These two were really strong enough to be called kings in the late stage of half-step celestial realm. If ordinary people went up to them, they would only be easily killed. If they provoked them, they would also die. Your power is stronger than I thought, but this can't stop you from losing today. At this time, Yin Taiping opened his mouth. He looked at Yi Shiwen with a bit of fear in his eyes. Yi Shiwen had just received this blow without suffering any damage. This was enough to make him feel incomparably fearful. He was very clear that although it was only the first attack, he absolutely did not hold back. How could Yi Shiwen not be surprised that he could actually block it? Such a person, if allowed to grow, would probably also be extremely terrifying. In the face of such a person, the best way was to kill him in the cradle. Even an unruly person like him had such a thought. One could imagine how much shock Yi Shiwen had given him. If it weren't for the fact that his realm far surpassed Yi Shiwen's, perhaps he wouldn't be Yi Shiwen's opponent at this time. It's still hard to say who will lose. Yi Shiwen faintly smiled. His blood and chi were surging, and the iron sword in his hand was clanging. It had been a long time since he had met such an opponent. He had just stepped into the ninth heaven of the Transcendence realm and needed such an opponent so that he could completely grasp the strength of the ninth heaven of the Transcendence realm, which could save him a lot of time. Who do you think you are? You are just relying on your realm. Yi Shiwen continued to provoke Yin Taiping. My level is higher than yours. This is where my advantage lies. Do you think I will be provoked into lowering my level to fight you? Yin Taiping said with a cold smile. Although he was confident, but he wasn't arrogant to such an extent. Not to mention, Yi Shiwen's strength had given him an extremely dangerous illusion. Otherwise, he might have sealed his own strength to fight against Yi Shiwen. He had been fighting for many years, and had an illustrious reputation. His fierce reputation had never been obtained by luck. Instead, it had been obtained through battles. Boom! Yin Taiping attacked again. The iron spear suddenly retracted, followed by another terrifying attack. The iron spear cut through the void, as if it had pierced the sky in an instant. This kind of mighty martial arts was completely different from what Yi Shiwen felt when he fought with Yin Taiping a year ago. At that time, Yin Taiping was more like a ranger, but this time, he was like a general on the battlefield. It was hard to say which was more powerful, because after cultivating to the extreme, all of them were terrifying existences. However, it had to be said that Yi Shiwen had laid the foundation for entering the ninth level of the Transcendence realm in this year. However, Yin Taiping was not idle either. He was stronger than he was a year ago. In fact, he was much stronger. Although he still hadn't stepped into the celestial realm, there was no doubt that he had taken a step forward. At his level, some people might have already stepped into the sky-human stage. However, he had yet to do so. Everyone was different. Some people's bodies were like the ocean. Although they were very strong, it would be much more difficult for them to fill up their bodies compared to the average person's body. Just like Yishiwen, his strength was the best in the same realm, but it was much more difficult for him to make a breakthrough than ordinary people. Ordinary people with his accumulation would have already stepped into the celestial realm long ago. It was the same for Yin Taiping. After another year, he had become stronger, but he hadn't reached the extreme yet. The iron sword in Yishiwen's hand clanged, bursting out countless sword auras. They drifted in the void, forming an endless edge, and fiercely collided with the iron spear. Boom! Another earth-shattering collision occurred. The void trembled and cracked. The two of them did not hold back at all. Their killing intent towered up into the sky. Even though they were hiding in the array of the trading center, the crowd could still feel the terrifying killing intent sweeping over. These masters who could be called heroes in the outside world only felt a chill from head to toe at this time. All of them felt a little scared. They were in the same realm, but they were far inferior. The two of them were equally matched in this attack. Yin Taiping's realm was profound, while Yishiwen's accumulation was deep, and his tyrant body was even more tyrannical. They were actually evenly matched. After the attack failed, the two did not stop at all, and directly launched a punitive expedition against each other. Boom! 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 In an instant, it was unknown how many times the two sides collided. The aftermath of the battle directly swept into the depths of the space, and it was unknown how many tyrannical masters were alarmed. Masters of this level, in the entire human secret realm, could be said to be the absolute peak battle. And the two blue-robed young men and the red-robed middle-aged man, who had been waiting for this battle for a year, also appeared at this time. We were almost late. I didn't expect the battle to not end yet. The blue-robed young man smiled faintly, and said with a little surprise. Isn't that so? In such a battle, I thought one of us would fight with Yin Taiping. The red-robed middle-aged man laughed. It's only been a short year, and the progress of these two is not trivial. Yin Taiping's combat power has actually improved to this level. I heard that in this year, he has been fighting in the 100 planets, slaughtering many aborigines, and even destroying several aborigines' countries. It can be said that he is fierce, and he has also seized a lot of things. Compared to Yin Taiping, the one who has really made amazing progress is Yishiwen. He has only entered the 9th level of the law manifestation realm, but have you noticed that his entire temperament has changed dramatically? If a year ago, he could only barely protect himself when facing Yin Taiping, then now he can actually fight with Yin Taiping, whose strength has greatly improved. It's completely different. Yin Taiping's strength has greatly improved, and he has been reborn. The blue-robed young man frowned and said, This is interesting. There are too many people eyeing human secret realm number 1. Previously, when Yishiwen entered, many people said that Yishiwen was not qualified at all. Now it seems that even if he is not enough to dominate the human secret realm, at least he has the qualifications to look down on others. At least he is qualified to enter our circle. TSK, this is interesting. Why do I feel that Yin Taiping is asking to be humiliated? Even if he wins, it will not be glorious. Yishiwen is 3 levels lower than him, and it will be even more shameful if he loses. The middle-aged man in the red robe laughed loudly, with a hint of schadenfreude. He did not take Yin Taiping's predicament to heart at all. The battle between the two did not only attract the attention of these two people. Even people who were further away had rushed over, and those who were closer directly used their divine senses to observe. Speaking of which, this was a contest between the Master of Human Secret Realm number 1 and the Master of Human Secret Realm number 10. This level of battle could be regarded as the top battle in the Human Secret Realm. At this time, the two were completely focused on each other, and did not notice so many people coming. Even if they noticed, they would not care at all. At this time, in their eyes, only defeating each other was the most important thing at the moment. As the two could not defeat each other for a long time, both sides were already angry. They began to attack more violently. Swish! The sword light crossed the sky. Swish! The spear light shattered the void. Under the control of the masters of both sides, two terrifying forces blasted toward each other. Puchi! Puchi! The long spear instantly pierced into Yishuan's body and instantly pierced through his waist. Although Yishuan moved sideways at the critical moment, and did not directly pierce through his stomach, but it had still pierced through his waist. Blood splattered out, and Yishuan's entire face instantly turned pale. However, Yin Taiping's situation wasn't any better. Yishuan's sword had slashed down, and had almost chopped his entire body into two halves. Although he had managed to avoid a fatal blow at the critical moment, and hadn't been chopped into two halves, but a long and hideous wound had been left on his chest, and blood was flowing out freely. At the wound, countless sword chi entwined with the principles were constantly destroying Yin Taiping's body functions, as if it wanted to rush deeper into his body and cut off his vitality. And the chi in Yin Taiping's body was constantly expelling Yishuan's sword chi. All of this happened too suddenly. Originally, it was so difficult to capture the fight between the two, but in the blink of an eye, both of them were injured. From the beginning, the two of them were evenly matched. At this time, even their injuries were the same. It was hard to say whose injury was more fatal, but one thing was for sure: if it was someone else, they would have long been dead. Chapter 1343. The two of them fought to this point, but it was still difficult to determine the winner. The blood of both sides flowed into the void, and both sides began to weaken. Huff! 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 Yishuan was constantly gasping for breath. Just a moment ago, his spine had almost been broken. Just being pierced was nothing, but if his spine was broken, that would be the real horror. At that time, he was afraid that he would really be finished. Even if he had the Phoenix regeneration technique, it would not be so easy to repair it. But even so, he still felt that his internal organs were pierced in an instant. The faint cry of a phoenix could be heard from within his body. His wounds began to flicker with golden light, and his wounds began to heal gradually. In terms of healing, Yishuan had never seen a better healing technique than the Phoenix regeneration technique. On the other side, Yin Taiping was also constantly recovering. Bursts of purple light appeared on his face, and the sword aura in his chest was quickly expelled. Then, the wound began to heal gradually. Although the area was large, it was not as deep as Yishuan's. At this time, he was also constantly panting, and his face was pale. After the wound began to gradually recover, his face gradually had a trace of color. Yishuan did not stop at all, and instantly attacked Yin Taiping again. There was no basis for the slightest easing between the two sides. For Yin Taiping, this was not only about the matter of human number one secret realm, but also related to his dignity. It was simply a great shame for him to be forced to such an extent by Yishuan, a mere 9th level of law manifestation realm. If he could not defeat Yishuan, he was afraid that it would be difficult for him to raise his head. For Yishuan, there was no need for any reason. Yin Taiping's hostility was the reason. Unlike Yin Taiyang was not strong enough, so he was not a big threat to Yishuan at all. However, Yin Taiping had the strength to really threaten Yishuan. Yishuan's speed was extremely fast. There were countless wind and thunder forces wrapped around his body as he moved forward. In an instant, he had already arrived in front of Yin Taiping. At this time, Yin Taiping's injuries were only 80% healed. Obviously, there was a huge gap between him and the Phoenix regeneration technique. Yishuan held the iron sword in his hand, and countless sword lights burst out. These sword lights condensed in midair, and instantly turned into a long river of swordsmanship, which directly penetrated towards Yin Taiping. Boom! Yin Taiping wasn't afraid of Yishuan at all. Although he had only recovered 80% of his strength, he was surprised at Yishuan's recovery speed. However, he didn't have much time to think at this time. He immediately thrust his iron spear. The spear's shadow that was as fast as lightning pierced through the sky. It was like a long sky, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws as it charged towards the long river of swords. Boom! It was another terrifying collision. At this time, Yishuan's figure shook slightly, and Yin Taiping took a step back slightly. Although it was only a small gap, it was enough to see the gap between the two sides in terms of healing. It had finally turned into an impact in terms of combat effectiveness. The gap between the two sides has begun to widen. The gap between the two sides has begun to widen. What kind of healing power technique does Yishuan practice? It's so amazing. I've heard of Yin Taiping's healing power technique. It's a holy healing technique obtained from an ancient battlefield. It's very amazing, especially in terms of emergency treatment in a short period of time. However, I didn't expect that Yin Taiping would fall behind Yishuan in this aspect. At this time, the blue-robed youth said with some surprise. With such an advantage, unless one's strength can overwhelm him, otherwise, one may be tortured to death by him in the end. The red-robed middle-aged man nodded and said, "He really has a lot of secrets. This time, Yin Taiping is going to suffer a loss." Yin Taiping's expression changed. He had also noticed this point. As the saying goes, the onlooker sees everything clearly. But in reality, it was precisely because he was in the game that he was able to feel how big the difference that such a small gap would create would be. The iron sword and iron spear were still in a stalemate in midair. Neither of them was willing to give in. At this time, Yishuan's left hand stretched out, and instantly pointed a finger. The huge finger broke through the void, and directly pointed at Yin Taiping. Yin Taiping suddenly turned pale with fright, and quickly retreated because he found that compared to the sword technique that Yishuan had always used, Yishuan's finger technique was truly terrifying. Although Yin Taiping had seen Yishuan's finger technique in the previous fight, he didn't expect that Yishuan's finger technique would have such shocking progress in less than a year. It was completely different from before. "Where do you think you're going?" "Imprisoning the heavens," Yishuan shouted, and instantly pointed his index finger. It turned into a huge cage in the void, and directly shrouded Yin Taiping. Yin Taiping instantly retracted his long spear, and stabbed it into the void. Boom! The long spear firmly blocked the cage formed by the huge finger in the void, and didn't give him the opportunity to advance even an inch. However, the iron sword in Yishuan's right hand didn't have an opponent at this time. It directly proved that the sword light instantly pierced out a sword lotus, and swept towards Yin Taiping. For Yishuan, multitasking in such a fierce battle was just at his fingertips. He had already learned how to multitask since he had obtained the mysterious space. However, this was the first time for Yin Taiping. He might be able to multitask under ordinary circumstances. However, Yishuan's sword light and sky-severing finger were equivalent to the all-out attack of an expert of the same level. He didn't dare to underestimate either of them. However, it also turned into a complete tragedy. Bang! Yishuan's sword lotus ferociously hit his chest, and then a huge explosion sound resounded. His entire chest was badly mutilated by the explosion, and his whole body was sent flying upside down. He had suffered serious injuries. Puff! The huge force shook his body, and directly made him spurt out a mouthful of blood. Yishuan's slight advantage over Yin Taiping was seized by Yin Taiping, and then completely turned into a huge advantage. Originally, Yin Taiping and Yishuan's strength should be about the same, but now he was beaten to this state. This also made the surrounding onlookers completely dumbfounded. They didn't expect to see such a scene. At this time, Yishuan's sky-imprisoning form directly smashed down. That huge cage was like a huge millstone, as if it wanted to grind him to death on the spot. Yishuan's aura became even more tyrannical. Roar! The exotic beast that Yin Taiping was originally sitting on directly roared and rushed towards Yishuan. It opened its bloody mouth, and directly shot out a light beam that was as thick as a water tank, and blasted towards Yishuan. Yishuan directly waved his hand to defend himself. This exotic beast had definitely entered the realm of half-step celestial realm, and he didn't know where Yin Taiping found it. Boom! Yishuan spread out his hand, and that huge beam of light directly bombarded his hand. His arm slightly trembled, and then he grabbed it with his big hand, and directly grabbed and extinguished that beam of light. Then Yi Shiwen put his hands together and pinched a lull. There was a huge explosion in the void, and countless spiritual energies began to vibrate. Then, a huge sword light fell from the sky, directly slashing towards that exotic beast. Although that exotic beast had also entered the half-step celestial realm, compared with Yin Taiping, there was obviously a huge gap, and it was not a match for Yi Shiwen. Immediately, it had no time to react, and its head was cut off by Yi Shiwen's sword. Puff! Its head directly slipped from its body, and blood spurted out like a pillar. Everyone was shocked. A ferocious beast in the late stage of celestial being realm had died tragically in Yi Shiwen's hands in an instant. It was really too scary in his hands. It was not that Yin Taiping was weak, but that Yi Shiwen was ridiculously strong. From this moment on, everyone had no objection to Yi Shiwen entering the first secret realm. Or, at Yi Shiwen's level, it was not something they could question at all. Perhaps the owner of the first 10 secret realms was qualified to question, but now that the owner of the 10th secret realm, Yin Taiping, had been defeated by Yi Shiwen, what else could they say? Roar! Seeing that his mount was killed by Yi Shiwen in order to save him, Yin Taiping seemed to have gone crazy in an instant. He let out a long roar, like a demon crawling out of hell, drenched in blood. Waves of tyrannical aura began to boil on his body, and his body, which had been badly mutilated by Yi Shiwen's sword lotus, also began to recover rapidly. Yi Shiwen, be careful. He seems to be activating some secret technique. Stop him in advance. Otherwise, you will definitely fail this time. At this moment, Yemo also seemed to have been awakened by this tyrannical aura. During this period of time, because of Elder Ye's existence, Yemo had been sleeping as much as possible to avoid being discovered by Elder Yi. For the demon race, the ancient Baron's continent was still relatively sensitive. Even if Elder Yi was very open-minded, Yi Shiwen did not dare to take such a risk. Hence, he let Yemo sleep. Moreover, Yemo needed a lot of time to break through the Tianyuan mirror into a heaven-level magic tool. However, he did not expect to be alarmed now. And Yi Shiwen frowned. He would not wait for the opponent to completely erupt before being beaten up like a fool. That was something only an idiot would do. He spread out his left hand, and in an instant, countless spiritual auras began to gather towards his left hand. Countless spiritual auras were absorbed, and with his left hand as the core, a huge storm was formed. Slowly, these spiritual auras mixed with Yi Shiwen's real elemental energy, condensing into a huge spirit bomb. Immediately after, Yi Shiwen suddenly threw this huge spirit bomb out. Boom! The spirit bomb instantly broke through the sky, blasting towards Yin Taiping. Chapter 1344. Yin Taiping, who was still in the brewing stage of the explosion, did not even have time to react before he was hit by this Yuan Qi bomb wrapped in the power of wind and thunder. Boom! A small mushroom cloud wrapped in countless spiritual energy began to rise in an instant, and in this mushroom cloud, Yin Taiping's body was instantly blasted hundreds of miles away. He was already seriously injured, and his secret technique was blocked by Yi Shiwen. At this time, he directly passed out in the void. The winner was decided just like that. Everyone looked at this scene in disbelief. Originally, they thought that the two had always been evenly matched, and that the battle would probably last for a long time. They did not expect that it did not last that long at all, and Yi Shiwen's being won. All this happened too suddenly. Originally, the two sides were evenly matched. Since when did the situation between the two sides completely reverse? Everyone thought about it, and quickly remembered that if there was a time when the situation reversed, then it must have started from when the two of them were injured. Originally, the situation between the two sides was still evenly matched, but with their injuries, the situation was completely changed. Now it became Yi Shiwen completely crushing Yin Taiping. Many people were still in disbelief. How did an injury become the turning point of the battle between the two sides? At this time, only a few people clearly saw what was going on. This Yi Shiwen is amazing. He is direct and efficient, without the slightest bit of sloppiness. His combat experience is very rich. He is definitely not a flower that grew up in a greenhouse, the young man in the blue robe said with emotion. Even if it was me, it would probably be impossible for me to fight such a devastating battle and defeat Yin Taiping. It's a pity that Yin Taiping wanted to exchange injury for injury just now, which is the root cause of his defeat. This time, I did not come in vain. At least I know that when fighting with Yi Shiwen, I must not be injured, even if it's to exchange injury for injury. Once injured, I will completely fall into his rhythm. In addition, he is a person who dares to think and act, absolutely a person who kills decisively. Such a person is not easy to deal with. I'm afraid that there will be fewer people coveting the Rin No. 1 secret realm now. This time, Yin Taiping completely kicked an iron plate and became a stepping stone, making him famous overnight. The middle-aged man in the red robe nodded. Yi Shiwen was very famous before, but it was based on the fact that he was the owner of the Rin No. 1 secret realm. If he was not the owner of the Rin No. 1 secret realm, who would care who he was? But now it was different. After defeating Yin Taiping, he had the strength and status that matched the owner of the Rin No. 1 secret realm. Even if he was not the strongest in the Rin No. 1 secret realm, he was definitely one of the strongest. That was enough. The news that Yi Shiwen defeated Yin Taiping also spread throughout the entire Rin No. 1 secret realm in a short time. Countless people were stirred up because of this matter. Both of them were famous. Yi Shiwen was the owner of the Rin No. 1 secret realm, and Yin Taiping was the owner of the Rin No. 10 secret realm. The battle between the two could be seen as the ultimate battle of the entire Rin No. 1 secret realm. But it ended with such a result. For a time, Yi Shiwen could be said to have become famous. Those who dared to talk loudly about him disappeared in an instant. At this time, there was only deep shock. How much time did Yin Taiping spend to establish his prestige? Yi Shiwen only used one battle to stand on Yin Taiping's defeat and establish his prestige. For a time, people were moving in all directions. This is great. After the original owner of the Rin No. 1 secret realm left for the Earth No. 1 secret realm, there will be another battle for the king of the Rin No. 1 secret realm. Isn't that right? Yin Taiping's strength is not inferior to Yi Shiwen's. His failure this time is more or less unlucky. How can he let it go? When he completely recovers, he will be another terrifying killing god. It turns out that the owner of the Rin No. 1 secret realm has been away for a while. The Battle of the Kings is about to begin. I'm really looking forward to who can inherit the rule of the Rin No. 1 secret realm. The Rin No. 1 secret realm is not the key. The key is the uncrowned crown of the king of the Rin No. 1 secret realm. How many people want to get it? Yi Shiwen also became an influential figure. In many people's eyes, Yi Shiwen undoubtedly had the strength and qualification to compete for the king of the Rin No. 1 secret realm. Although it was only a qualification recognized by everyone, the Rin No. 1 secret realm was so big and there were countless masters. There were only a few people who really had such qualifications. The others could only watch the competition. Among these names, Yi Shiwen also heard two familiar names, Prince Jin and Prince Yu. These two people occupied the Rin No. 3 secret realm and the Rin No. 4 secret realm respectively. The two of them occupied two of the top 10 secret realms. It was conceivable how high their status in the Rin No. 1 secret realm was and how powerful their forces were. Although they could not be considered as covering the sky with one hand, they were definitely a king. When the owner of the Rin No. 1 secret realm was still around, he could not do anything to Prince Jin and Prince Yu, let alone now. Without the suppression from the rulers above them, the two of them rapidly grew in power. Even though the two of them were in seclusion, their subordinates alone had quite a few half-step celestial realm experts fighting all over the place for them, occupying quite a few secret realms. There were also many people who chose to join the Golden Jade Pavilion after careful consideration. For a time, Prince Jean and Prince Yu could be said to be in the limelight. Although they had not appeared yet, both of them were regarded as popular candidates to compete for the king's position. Most importantly, they were two people. If they joined forces, they would naturally have a huge advantage in competing for the king's position. During this period of time, in order to compete for human number one secret realm, they also started to build momentum. In particular, for some unknown reason, the grievances between Yishiwen and Golden Jade Pavilion had also been dug up all of a sudden. For a time, the grievances between Yishiwen and the Golden Jade Pavilion became the hottest topic after a meal. The grievances between Yishiwen and Yin Taiping some time ago became irrelevant at this time. Many people seemed to quickly forget about Yin Taiping's matter. The people of the Golden Jade Pavilion even came to provoke Yishiwen several times. They even said that they wanted Yishiwen to hand over the Rin number 1 secret realm as soon as possible, and then personally come to apologize. Otherwise, when Prince Jean and Prince Yu came out of closed-door training, they would make him suffer. This clamor soon made the conflict between both sides even more heated. Especially in the eyes of many people, the conflict between both sides was almost inevitable. Prince Jean and Prince Yu had chased after Yishiwen many times because of the 9 revolutions Taishian Golden Pill many years ago. Both sides had already formed grievances. What's more, the current Rin number 1 secret realm was Yishiwen's place of refuge. Yet, the Golden Jade Pavilion actually wanted to take it away. In their eyes, this was really tolerable, but not the Golden Jade Pavilion. When the time came, a conflict was almost inevitable. Especially with Yishiwen's fame, the 9 revolutions Taishian Golden Pill once again became something that many people paid attention to. However, the current Yishiwen was already different from before. What was Yishiwen in the past? He was just a small law manifestation realm. Even a master at the 9th level of the law manifestation realm could chase after him. But now, Yishiwen had entered the 9th level of the law manifestation realm. His being was comparable to a half-step celestial realm late stage. Unless it was a celestial realm master, others who wanted to chase after him would have to carefully consider whether they had the ability to do so. For a time, the matter between Yishiwen and the Golden Jade Pavilion was a clamor. What made everyone feel a little strange was that Yishiwen did not say anything in the face of such a matter and kept silent. Many people found it strange. No matter what, he was now the master of the number 1 secret realm. In the entire number 1 secret realm, he could be regarded as the number 1 figure in the entire number 1 secret realm. In the face of such provocation from these people of Golden Jade Pavilion, he should come out and say a few words. However, in the face of these provocations, Yishiwen did not seem to care at all. He did not respond at all, which further encouraged the arrogance of these warriors of Golden Jade Pavilion. They were even spotted several times in the vicinity of the number 1 secret realm. But what they did not know was that Yishiwen did not even bother to respond. Now that Prince Jean and Prince Yu were in closed-door training and wanted to break into the celestial realm, the remaining people were just some clowns who could not pose any threat to him at all. It was just some verbal arrogance. He would not lose a piece of flesh. If they wanted to be arrogant, then let them be. Yishiwen couldn't help but sneer again and again as he thought of the arrogance of these people. These people obviously didn't understand that in this world, it wasn't the one who shouted louder who was in the right, but the one with the bigger fist who was in the right. There was no point in arguing with them at all. During this period of time, he went to the Wanshan territory to look for Yilanshan, but who knew that he would be told that Yilanshan simply wasn't there and seemed to have gone outside. He went to the Wanshan territory several times during this period, but still couldn't find Yilanshan, which made him somewhat depressed. However, just when he was getting a little impatient, Yishiwen received an invitation from Yilanshan, inviting him to Wanlan Realm. Yilanshan was back. After receiving this news, Yishiwen immediately went to Wanlan Realm without any hesitation. The entire Rin number 1 secret realm was arranged from the inside to the outside, so the first 10 secret realms were actually not very far away from each other. They were all in the area closest to the Earth number 1 secret realm. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.